Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. We are live on the Market Open. It is Thursday, June 18th, one day after Mr. Kevin Warsh officially has started a new era for the Fed. We've got a lot to talk about in terms of what he said, how the market's reacting to it, ultimately how the market will continue to react to it over the coming months. This is the last week of the trading week. Tomorrow we're going to have markets that are closed. So today is the last day to see how markets react. On top of that, you've got quad witching. And quad witching is the simultaneous expiry of multiple types of options, single stock options, futures options, index options. And that, as a result of all those different options that are expiring, it's probably going to create a lot more volatility in the context of what we got going on today. We also have some Iran updates with the U.S. and the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding, which officially was signed last night. That is also likely going to create some volatility as the market seems to like that. Oil down another 2% right now, pre-market 75, which is nice to see. We were red yesterday after Kevin Warsh talked. I think we'll talk about why that happened. And we're getting basically a rebound in the pre-market. So it felt like a knee-jerk reaction, ended up looking like it was a knee-jerk reaction. Now maybe the pre-markets are playing with our emotions here, but if it was knee-jerk, then the rebound that we're getting should be a bit substantial because we were up pretty nicely before the market ended up taking a little bit of a dump towards the end of the day. Oil down, MOU being signed. I mean, just got a lot of stuff in the pipeline that is obviously good news. And then obviously we're going to have to see how much the market cares about this new Fed. The thing about Kevin Warsh is he definitely said things that were a bit controversial as a Fed chair, and I don't know if the market loved it. I don't think the market should hate it, but the emphasis on rate hikes from the other committee members versus cuts, I think, was kind of the core reason why, we ended up having some pain. And long term, hopefully, we'll be able to navigate that. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Intel, we got some big news this morning as well with Intel and Apple. We'll talk about that, along with the fact that Apple also is raising prices due to the memory shortage. So that's why Apple was pumping a little bit yesterday in the overnights. The New York parade is today. I will not be there for the Knicks. I am excited to watch it virtually. I will be in New York later today because me and Steve are recording, but we're not going to be, I'm not going to be at the parade, dude. The parade is just, I feel like it's going to be madness. And I don't know if it's worth going to the parade, but it will be exciting. SpaceX is down. We'll talk about that. This is one's having its first string of red days, 230 a couple days ago, and now it is sitting at like 185.63, down 3%. Again, it IPO'd at 135, popped up to 150, and then went straight to 230. So this one taking a little bit of a haircut is not that crazy. It's just, how many people bought in the 200s and now potentially are thinking if they should have ended up selling. So we'll talk about this one as well. Micron up 5% as well based on some of the Apple headlines. Look at the S&P up 1%. This thing fell 1.25%, basically recovering everything that it lost. If we hit 749, it'll be a full recovery from Warsh. 745.98 right now in the pre-markets. All right, so let's get started. Again, thank you everybody for being here. I think we'll get started with Warsh. We also got some upgrades on Iran. That's why that one's moving a bit. Nebius and Hood have just been absolutely incredible. Hopefully they can keep their momentum going. Nebius right there, 296 pre-market. It really looks like 300s on the menu today. And then Robinhood broke 111 yesterday. If we can break above 110 again, maybe we can hold 110 going into the close. So Warsh, what happened yesterday? Well, he officially said that he is more intent on changing the Fed. Everyone thought he would be intent on changing the Fed, but no one knew if he was actually going to change the Fed. And he basically came out and said, yes, we are going to engage in a totally different new Fed regime, which involves task forces. So here is what he said yesterday, introducing this new concept, which the market, I don't know if they fully love or hate yet.
Let me turn now to a few words on a key initiative that we're announcing today. I'm appointing a task force in each of 5 areas that are central to the broad conduct of monetary policy. First, Fed communications. Second, the Fed's balance sheet. Third, our use and reliance on existing data sources. Fourth, productivity and jobs in an era of transformation. And last, the Fed's inflation frameworks. These subjects are timely, consequential, and in my view, worthy of a fresh look. My colleagues and I discussed them with energy and purpose over the last couple of days. For each of these independent task forces, I'm enlisting some of the very best minds, both inside and outside the economics profession. They will be supported by subject matter specialists from our superb Fed staff. And they'll have a straightforward charge. Start with first principles. Ask hard questions. Examine current practice. Consider alternatives. And ultimately, propose next steps for policymaker consideration. Since last summer, my colleagues discussed possible improvements in the form and function of Fed communications. This new task force will build on that effort, and I expect propose some well-considered changes, including to the SEP I mentioned a few moments ago.
So the reason this was so important is because we have not had a Fed speaker in a very long time that has actually made a difference when it comes to bringing some level of communication guidelines or forward guidance guidelines that have changed how the Fed has interacted with the media. And one of the only people that didn't put out a dot plot yesterday, a summary of economic projections, which basically shows you how many potential chances we have for a rate hike going into the future or a cut, was Kevin Warsh, because he doesn't believe in it. 9 out of the 18 members yesterday thought we needed a hike. 6 out of those 9 members thought we needed multiple hikes. And Kevin Warsh basically implied that, he was one of the people that doesn't think we need a hike. He didn't say that, but he implied it by showing that he's not releasing a dot plot. There's the dot plot that came out from yesterday. And that's why I think the markets went down, right? Because at least yesterday's knee-jerk reaction was based on this idea that if we actually are going to have a hike, which I vehemently doubt, even though traders are pricing in October, there's going to be a 50% chance for a hike. If we don't get that, especially if oil keeps coming down, which means inflation keeps coming down, like there's going to be no need for a hike. Like it really is. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why the Fed members would change their mind in a couple months, especially because they voted on this dot plot before oil fell below 80. So it seems kind of obvious that dips here are going to get bought on the assumption that we might not get a cut, but we're definitely not going to get a hike. And as a result of that, yesterday's price action was kind of just of the moment, but it wasn't as serious. I think the big thing about Warsh that I liked yesterday is that he's actually talking about finding a way to get to the truth by not using the backward-looking metrics that he's been a critic of for the past 30 years. He was in the Fed in 2008. And, he felt like a lot of the problems in the Fed led to the financial crisis because we didn't have an accurate understanding of how to get to the data. The question is, who's he going to bring? He said the top minds in economics, the top minds in business. Like, is he going to be recruiting some of the biggest CEOs in the world to help him on these task forces? What authority do these task forces have? Are they actually going to be able to sway public opinion? Are they actually going to be able to make some of the Fed presidents think in a different way? Like, there's a lot of these questions that are out there. And I don't know the answer to those questions. I don't think anyone has the answer to those questions. But the fact that he's trying to do something different is exciting. And as a result of that, I think, the market will be able to be at least a bit more conducive to some of the stuff that he tries to do. And, they might test them as well, which is that thesis for why the markets will take a little bit of a breather. But maybe those tests are needed and they don't actually result in that much pain. The last clip right here from Kevin Warsh, someone asked him, what happens if the Fed stops giving us guidance? Wouldn't that create more volatility? And I thought his answer was pretty good.
So I think financial markets perform best when they react to incoming data. I think the financial markets work less efficiently when they ask a question, how will the Federal Reserve react to that incoming information? The more that markets are paying attention to what's happening in the real economy, deciding what's good data and what's less good data, the more financial markets can price what they believe is the most likely and what are the tail risks. Financial market prices are probably the most important source of information to guide central bankers. But when all the financial markets are doing is reflecting back what we've said, then we're taking the most important source of information and we're being blind to it. I'd like us to create a system where those blinders come off, where markets are following data that they efficiently think is reliable, and they'll be watching data, we'll be watching data. They'll come with better information through market prices to us. We can make more informed decisions. But ultimately, the goal that I said at the outset, deliver on the price stability objective that Congress told us to do, and that we've got to get in the business of doing.
Yeah, if I could take you in the meeting.
I mean, I don't know who could hate on that answer. Now, will he actually execute it the way that he's talking about? I'm not sure, but there's just no way anyone, I think, could be meaningfully upset at that analysis, because the problem with the Fed over the past 5 years has been this form of analysis that like never comes to fruition. And if it if it does come to fruition, it always happens in a way that was never expected. So then the question is, why did you give that guidance in the first place? And usually they're giving that guidance on data they don't even have. And so if they continue to do it in that way, I would imagine that there's going to be a better chance for them to mess up, which is why Kevin Warsh is just saying, yeah, we don't need to do it. Could this involve Palantir? I really think he's going to use some level of AI technology platforms to help him gather that data. And, maybe that is a job for Palantir, which, since 2022, a lot of us have been saying this would make sense to reform. But the point is he has an ambition to change. Now, Elon had an ambition to change with Doge, and that failed, in my opinion, not because of Elon, but because of the forces that be. So he's going up against an institution that historically has never wanted this type of change. And maybe that's why Trump put him in there. But if he actually can make that change and it results in more sound monetary policy, then it's not to say we're getting a cut anytime soon, but it is to say there is a shot that we have a reasonable Fed. And everyone hates the Fed. It's like 95% of people don't like the Fed. It would be nice for 95% of people to think the Fed is a reasonable, legitimate institution. It's just time will tell until if that ends up playing out. So he did mention using AI. Yeah, he had a lot of he had about 5 minutes of talking about AI being deflationary, the job potential labor market. Speaking of labor market, by the way, jobless claims today, 226,000 versus 225. So a little bit higher than expected, but again, nowhere near recessionary levels. That's got to get closer to 300,000. So jobless claims continue to be okay. But yeah, I'm excited for him. I think he'll be legit. But we're going to have to see. We will be following every word that Mr. Kevin Warsh says over the next 5 years. Okay, macro headlines. What do we got along with some of these upgrades? First of all, Iran, they upgraded, Jefferies initiated a buy on Iran, $79. Iran has positioned itself as a unique place among AI infrastructure providers with an extraordinary large long-term powered land bank of approximately 6 gigawatts in vertically integrated GPU cloud approach. Anchored by IG tenant credit, the Microsoft and NVIDIA contracts position Iran to deliver $3.1 billion of annual recurring revenue. Owning the land and data centers provides Iran with unique optionality to service customers from powered shells to GPU cloud builds. We believe it's a buy at $79. Nice to see some good news on Iran. Obviously, CoreWeave and Nebius have had a massive run over the past couple of days. And again, Nebius looking like it wants to go for that 300, 297 right here in the pre-market. But some of the other neoclouds that obviously have the capacity, people have been waiting for them to get a bit more recognized. Obviously, a big deal with Iran would help. But the fact that it's getting some of the sell side love, I think is good, and hopefully that can make more sense. Apple and Intel. So this is what Trump tweeted in the morning. This is why Intel is getting some love. The technology of the world relies on was invented in America. We all remember Intel inside. Stupid presidents took our economy for granted and let Taiwan and others steal our semiconductor factories. They forgot to protect our industries with tariffs. When I won my third actually, it was clear America needed its semiconductor industry to come back to the USA. We designed everything, but we need to build it here now. He then goes on to say that Apple will officially be working with Intel. And this is part of the reason why Intel is getting a bunch of love in the pre-market. On top of that, Apple is raising their prices on laptops and phones because of the memory crunch. Tim Cook said that to the Wall Street Journal last night. I mean, at the end of the day, it's bullish Apple. It's not really bullish consumer if you have to, pay even extra for these devices. But the memory crunch is very real. We're seeing that in the supply-demand imbalances on SK Hynix and Micron's earnings. So Apple going up, Intel going up, and then theoretically the memory companies also going up because Apple is once again validating the level of supply-demand imbalance that exists, which is why you're seeing Micron right here push 1100 in the pre-market. It is very bullish memory because when you got a company like Apple saying, yeah, we literally need to increase our prices just to be able to keep up with our cost of goods, it means that that shortage is not going away anytime soon. I mean, Micron could reduce their prices on memory to help Apple, but Micron doesn't need to, right? Because they have the leverage here. So Micron right now up 5.2%. Intel was pushing 130 pre-market. We are at 131. That's up 8%. The partnership with Apple was announced like a month ago, so it's not necessarily that new, but the fact that it's like officially real, I think is getting the street to be more excited. Iran and Trump. So they've officially signed the MOU. The document of the MOU came out last night, or at least the text of it. This is a clip of Trump in France yesterday signing the MOU with Macron.
Okay. Sounds good. This was not easy, I can tell you.
So that was it. That was the signing. I am not sure necessarily if that was the official signing or if the signing is still happening in Geneva, because remember we talked about yesterday that both sides wanted to get the signing over with and do it quicker than Friday. So I'm still a little confused if we're actually going to have a ceremony in Switzerland tomorrow, where I think we are, because Trump did mention JD Vance will be going to it and he's not going to be going to that. So, but then again, he signed it. So I guess maybe JD Vance is signing like a symbolic one, whereas the real one was signed last night by Trump. And I'm looking at the picture right here. You also have Iran's signature on it based on the MOU that was put out by Bloomberg. So yeah, I mean, there you go. That's theoretically the end of the war. Yeah, the president of Iran signed it as well. And again, it does have these 14 bullet points, as we talked about them yesterday, but it's ceasefire, $300 billion. The United States and America undertakes with regional partners to develop a definitive mutual agreed upon $300 billion fund for the reconstruction and economic development of the Islamic Republic of Iran. 60 days to be able to negotiate. Strait of Hormuz opens, naval blockade goes away. All the things that we talked about, they are in this. And I think that's why oil is down right here. But I also think that's probably why we're going to get, hopefully, a bit of a boost in the markets, as what's left to necessarily get super upset about. Obviously, there could be some more attacks potentially in Lebanon and things of that nature, and maybe things go the wrong direction. But both sides have legit signed an MOU. That MOU is taking oil below 75 right there, as you see. Iran officially posted the fully executed memorandum of understanding, which is now fully taken effect as per Tanzim state media. And obviously, we just saw the video of Trump signing the MOU. So there it is. It's done. It is done. Hopefully we don't go back to fighting it. The 3 months of craziness that we've all dealt with feels like it's kind of over. Every time we've said that, it ends up coming back. But this time it actually legit feels like it's over. And, this week it ended up being a sell the news. It obviously didn't pump as much as people expected, but we were in Kevin Warsh. We got quad witching today. We got a lot of options expiring back and forth. By the way, speaking of options, SpaceX continues to be in the top 3 of options that are traded every day. 1.4 million contracts yesterday. Tesla and Nvidia were number 1 and 2. But it does feel like we've got some relief. And if we've got some relief, then maybe that should be helping long term. I mean, this is good for the economy. This is good for oil prices. This is good for Iran's economy. If you've got $300 billion of investment coming in, this is good for global sanction relief. This is good for Middle Eastern relations potentially. This, maybe gets them a bit of an inroad with China. I mean, there's just a lot of ways where this hopefully is not as bad as we thought. And if that's the case, then, maybe we're moving up. But again, I think we're going to have at least a couple of weeks to see how the market interprets it. It's just, as of now, I don't see the bear case on them officially signing it unless you have an attack that causes one side to get upset. But if that doesn't happen, then we might be able to be okay. Mid, don't you think Trump is insider trading? Well, it's funny you bring that up. There's a video that I saw this morning. Look, whether it's Trump or the politicians, the caption on this was hilarious. This is the caption is me defending Trump's insider trading activities on Intel now that I'm green on the position.
Corruption is not bad. Corruption is only bad if I'm not involved.
Yes.
But if I'm part of that corruption, I'll defend it.
I mean, I think that's part of how. Definitely, if you're long Intel, bro, you're long Intel. I think that's how you feel. So, look, dude, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I mean, if the politicians are not going to stop insider trading at some point, all you have to do is be like, all right, if this is the world we live in, then this is the world we live in. There's just not much any of us could do. But at least for all of us, if the MOU is signed, there's a better chance that we can, move on from all this. Amit, did you pre-order the Snap glasses yet? I did not. Did not pre-order the Snap glasses. Likely not going to be using those. But, for those that do, I hope they enjoy. Snapchat right here, that stock, was it down? It was down 8% yesterday as that one continued to get hit. Again, this is the article right here. Apple to raise prices due to memory chip crunch. Tim Cook said this is the worst he's seen it in 40 years. He's like, this is the worst I've seen the memory chip crunch in decades. And so the fact that, that's just validation for the pricing power on the memory companies. SK Hynix, by the way, is going to be listing on the NASDAQ in a couple of weeks, which hit an all-time high yesterday again. So the ADRs for SK Hynix will be available to be traded in the States, which means you'll be able to like buy it on Robinhood. And I think that could, get you a lot of inflows and momentum as well. Okay, let's talk about big tech. So big tech has been taking a hit. We talked a little bit about it yesterday. It is a bit weird, but it's also not weird. Google barely up in the pre-market. That was down 2% yesterday. NVIDIA up a little bit in the pre-market. That was down 1.3% yesterday. Microsoft, she's trying. She was at 378 yesterday. She's at 380 pre-market. She's up $1. I mean, it's one of those things. Meta continues to be in the doghouse. Meta 573. It was at 567 yesterday. All the money is going to Robinhood, Nebius, Micron, Intel, ASML. I mean, I'll go down the list, and all those semiconductor names are super high beta names, but it is flowing out of the Mag 7. I think that money should be coming back as there's a lot more stability now that the MOU has been signed. But I also think even if that money comes back, it's going to be, a relatively small amount compared to the high beta names that continue to keep moving. The SaaS names, by the way, also getting hit. I mean, they're barely up in the pre-market. They got hit pretty hard yesterday. It's just one of those markets where, once again, there is a force of momentum and excitement, and that force of momentum and excitement is rooted in one sector. And as much as we think that, sector can shift, and it has shown signs of shifting. I mean, Robinhood is not a semiconductor stock, but it has shifted, gotten some love. So if I was up yesterday, the problem is the signal for rate hikes is what took it back down from 1850. Now it's trying to push 18 in the pre-market, but individual names are trying to pop out and get some of that momentum. Even SpaceX tried to get some of it, but now it's down pretty badly from 230. It's tough. All the space names got hit. They're up a little bit in the pre-market, but obviously they're down a lot from 2 weeks ago. It's the semis or bust right now. It's the semis or bust, which maybe is the opportunity for all the other names, but it also is the opportunity cost as the semis continue to win in the short term. Rockstar Games just said Grand Theft Auto pre-orders to begin June 25th. Is Take-Two green? Take-Two is up 6% on that. Grand Theft Auto 6 pre-orders to begin June 25th. Okay, is Broadcom up? Broadcom is up 3. We just hit 400. I don't think there's a headline there on Broadcom. I think that one's just moving. Reminds me of AMD from yesterday, as that one was moving pre-market. AMD back to 530 as well. But yeah, Take-Two, that's up as Grand Theft Auto is getting ready for pre-orders. Accenture earnings, 380 versus 369 on EPS. Revenue, 18.7 versus 18.75. Wow, Accenture. I did not expect 17% down. This one's already been down 30% on earnings multiple times over the past 2 years. Yeah, I mean, bro, there's a very small miss on revenue. They beat on EPS, but like, who's buying a consulting firm in the age of AI? No matter how much generative AI bookings they tell you they have, like, it just, you start wondering, like $100 billion for Accenture? I don't know. Now, maybe the financials justified. Maybe it's dirt cheap at 1.3 times sales and 11 times forward earnings. I mean, like maybe that's accurate historically going back to their numbers, but just the perception of a consulting firm not having monster numbers and then being a consulting firm in the age of AI, where most people think consulting firms aren't even that relevant. Now, Accenture is not going out of business or anything, but the point is, are they going to show massive growth? Maybe not. The company said that new bookings fell to 19.3 billion in the 3 months at the end of May. Yeah, that's probably a lot lower than the expectations, especially since they only did 18.7 in Q1. Well, that one's getting hit. Kroger also got hit today. Kroger down 10% right here. Kroger said the consumer's struggling a bit. So let me pull up the Kroger numbers. Kroger delivered a mixed start to fiscal year 2026. The standout operational achievement is e-commerce finally reaching profitability. However, the core grocery business is showing strain. Identical sales growth decelerated sharply to 1%, the weakest print in over a year, heavily pressured by a 130 basis point headwind from the Inflation Reduction Act. Gross margins also went down to 22.7%. So you have one stock in the consumer space struggling a bit based on margin pressure. You have another stock that's just, I think people are questioning the nature of its existence here as a consulting firm with decreased bookings. That's down 17% as well. And those names are down. Reddit, this one had a big move earlier in the week. This one came down yesterday with the SaaS names, unfortunately. 169 right here in the pre-market. It was at 182. Again, as Reddit continues to be seen as a SaaS company, that one also unfortunately gets hit. EOSC received their first purchase order under its 2 gigawatt capacity reservation agreement with Frontier Power USA. That's why that stock is also getting some love right there, up 9%. It was up 11% yesterday. The stock fell 50% back in February, so it took a pretty big hit. And it started to get some better partnerships over the past few weeks, which is why it's getting some more love. Oklo and Centrus signed an LOI. Centrus Energy, LEU, one of the bigger nuclear names that is out there. That's up 6%. Oklo, one of the big names that are out there. They don't really have that many financials to support it, but nonetheless, they have a lot of contracts with the DOE, a lot of connections. And so it's been one of the core names in the nuclear space that people have been thinking about. Their partnership today is going to plan a Southern Ohio campus with 1.2 gigawatts of capacity. And LEU is going to source the fuel from its American centrifuge plant in Pike City, Ohio, with deliveries that are starting in 2029. And that's getting the market to be a little bit more excited on those as well. On top of that, you have Cast. That stock in relationship to Starlink is up right here in the pre-market. FreeCast has signed a reseller agreement to offer Starlink business satellite broadband. Cast plans to bundle Starlink connectivity with its streaming, TV, advertising, local content, subscription management, and digital engagement tools. CAST, I think that's up a lot pre-market. Yeah, a little bit more than a lot, 128%. I think we're going to see a lot of these smaller broadband plays partner with SpaceX or just become a reseller of SpaceX's products. And there's still probably a massive opportunity. Kind of what a lot of these consulting firms do, right? They resell technology products to their clients from other vendors like Accenture does with Palantir, Deloitte, KPMG, all these guys. And, you know, maybe there is a business for a lot of these smaller players to just resell Starlink, get a margin on top of it, and then boom, they get re-rated. It was up 37% yesterday, up 128% in the pre-market as that continues to go green as well. I've never seen a Kroger's in Florida. You know, I've never seen a Kroger's in New Jersey. I don't think I've ever even been in a Kroger's. If I have, it was the chain. Yeah, I just looked it up. The chain operates primarily in the Midwest, South, and West Coast. There are no physical traditional Kroger brick and mortar stores in New Jersey. Nonetheless, sales are down right here. I don't think that's indicative of the entire consumer, but that's enough for the market to at least feel a little upset about their earnings. Broadcom, that is up 3%. QuantumScape announced an agreement with Honda on solid-state battery technology, QS. This stock has, it's been in the gutter for a while. It had a really good run in 2025. Then it ended up tanking in 2026. Year to date, it's down 37%. It's up about 16% pre-market, but an agreement with Honda is probably something that's going to get the street to care a bit more. It peaked out in around 2021 when it was in the 30s, and they had a lot of the EV craze behind it. And then this year it was in the 10s back in January, but that stock up 16%. Wow, a lot of you guys are excited for GTA 6. A lot of you guys are excited for this. I am not going to be a player of GTA 6 because I just don't really play video games that much. But I'm excited to kind of see how excited everyone else gets. I imagine the streams are going to be, I mean, there's going to be so many people probably streaming themselves playing it, which would also be really cool to see. Take-Two right there. That's up 5%. Pre-market. Who won yesterday between England and Croatia? It was England, 4-2. Okay. Shout out to the Brits. There you go. 4-2 on England and Croatia. You need to stream with Steve. Speaking of Steve, today is his birthday. So a very happy birthday to Mr. Steve. He doesn't really like people knowing that it's his birthday, but it is. So if you guys check out his stream later today, you can make sure to wish him a happy birthday. I'll be meeting him later today to do basis points. We'll get some dinner. But it is indeed the milkman's birthday. Micron, yes, that is also up pre-market. I mean, Apple's saying they need to raise their prices because of the memory crunch. That'll do it. That will do it, even perceptually. It's just another signal, I think, for the market to be excited about where Micron is going. Again, if you're just joining, Kevin Warsh is the new Fed chair. I think the meeting was really good yesterday. The problem is a lot of those committee members thought that we need a rate cut and need a rate hike, and that's what I think the market was scared about. I don't think the market actually thinks they're going to get a rate hike, and so the lack of actually pricing it in versus the perception of what could happen is kind of the disconnect right here. This is what Trump said when he was asked about Kevin Warsh, and it seems like he likes the guy because he wasn't too upset that they didn't fully cut rates yet.
Say it.
The Fed decision, they held rates today.
It's all right. Whatever.
And it looks like they might even raise them later this year. It's not clear. Do you have any comment
It could happen. I mean, it's hard to believe. It just keeps a country down, so it's so unusual. But we have a very good guy over there now, so I'm guided by what he wants.
I mean, a pretty reasonable endorsement by Trump about not being too aggressive to be upset at Kevin Warsh. If this was Powell, I'm pretty sure he would have had harsher words. So I think he's trusting the process and hoping that Kevin Warsh eventually will get him to the promised land here. We did not do the stock draft yet. It'll be on Saturday. It'll be live on Steve's channel. So Saturday, I think it's like at 9 p.m. we will officially do the stock draft. And so that'll be this weekend. That's up. Energy Fuels. I think that's up 16. I don't know if there's a headline there or that's on the LEU and Oklo partnership. But your nuclear name's definitely getting some love right here. Up 15% on pre-market news of a 20-year funding agreement with the Pentagon. Wow. I missed this one. Yeah, this came out about an hour ago. U.S. signed $725 million loan pact with Energy Fuels to boost domestic rare earth production. Again, I think the government is just finding a lot of strategic partners to work with. Obviously, the stocks are reacting to it because you have a blank check from the government, which really helps. And that's what we saw in the quantum names, the drone names. But it's also for stuff that matters, right? Like rare earths, energy, all this stuff is super, super relevant. And this is a very business-friendly administration. This is part of the reason a lot of people wanted Trump to win from a business perspective, is because he would make business deals. Now, he would create a lot of volatility in the meantime, but those business deals are what people ultimately want to see take place. Nebius right there, 296. I think she's going to go for 300 today. It feels inevitable at this point. She's going to crack the 300 unless she gets a massive dump when the market opens, which S&P is up 1%. I don't think we easily get that dump. Then maybe we're okay. And it's what's going on with SpaceX. I think the momentum has stalled out. The momentum could easily come back, but unfortunately, it has stalled out over the past couple of days. Today is also quad witching, so you got a lot of options expiring, including SpaceX options, which could create some more volatility. I don't know. It's still up. 187 still a lot from the 150 price. So if this thing were to actually fall back to the 150s, I would be surprised. But I'm sure there's plenty of people ready to buy at every dip that they get. It is, meaningfully down from the 200s, but I think it get back there pretty quickly. What is Nebius's price to sales? It is 59. Look, in the context of these neoclouds, I don't know if price to sales and PEs are the best way to judge them. I think it's more so about distributed compute and the capacity they have to bring that compute online. And I know that's not a financial metric, but that is something that affects the financials in the long term. And it's also about where the market sentiment is, right? Like the market sentiment is not on companies that like that are Salesforce. They're going to be using AI to improve their business, growing 10%. They're on the names that are growing 3, 4, 500%. That are the infrastructure layers, even if their financials aren't as good as Salesforce from a traditional perspective, to bring AI compute capacity online. And eventually that might change. And I think Nebius knows that's going to change, which is why they're trying to diversify the business and try to have something that's going to last for the long term. But for the foreseeable future, that is where the alpha has been. CoreWeave right there at 119 pre-market as well. And I think that's more about what the market actually cares about. What do you think about Microsoft? I think the same thing we all think about Microsoft. It's cheap, but do you want to have capital stuck there right now? I feel like I want to see the Mag 7 actually make a meaningful bounce because look, if we end up having some pain, all these high beta names are probably going to take a hit and the Mag 7 are going to go even worse. I really doubt there's going to be that easy rotation to see. If we end up seeing some momentum, are the Mag 7 names even going to participate in it, or are they going to go up 1 or 2, 3%, maybe 5% if we're lucky, and the other names just go up another 20, 30%? And that level of divergence is also, I think, scaring some people into being excited about the Max 7 right here. Palantir, that's up 0.28%. Pre-market as well. Is Adobe down? Adobe, wow, 195. I think that's the lowest in the past couple of weeks. Maybe would you buy ServiceNow or Palantir? I like Palantir on the growth side, so it would be Palantir. But honestly, I really think if one's going to pump, they're both going to pump. Like, I'm also trying to wonder what messed up the SaaS algos. Like, we saw SaaS reverse 2 weeks ago. They were doing great. They didn't have to go that much higher, but at least, Palantir 160, ServiceNow 140, they at least had re-rated to some extent. And then they all got taken down. And I'm trying to wonder what happened in the past, like, were people just bored 2 weeks ago and they bought SaaS and then they dumped it? Or did something happen? Did Claude say something? I'm like, I don't think anything happened. If anything, we just got more news about token costs going down, which is actually really good for the SaaS companies. So I don't know. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why they ended up taking that big of a hit. Maybe would you rather watch the Knicks parade or stock? When is the Knicks parade? Is it during the market open? It's usually in the morning, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's in the morning. Well, we can catch some highlights of it as well. But as of now, this will be the first day after Mr. Kevin Warsh officially has entered into the Fed chair. And we're going to see how the market thinks of it. Wow, Meta AI scientist says XAI is a failure. This is one of the former Meta AI scientists. Also, the Meta, dude, this was crazy what I saw on this quote. Meta CTO, Meta CTO says morale is near the worst it's ever been in the company. Leadership will offer increased snack budgets to lift spirits. And people are saying this is what the Meta CTO looks like right now. I mean, I couldn't believe that was a real quote. Meta CTO says we will offer increased snack budgets to increase more. I'm like, bro, like, I don't know if the snacks are going to help change mindset. The thing is, the earnings growth is enough for, the stock to obviously be undervalued. The problem is, if he's right about morale, then it's a deeper question of how the employees are thinking of their AI strategy. And that AI strategy cannot be that bad because it eventually will obviously affect the actual earnings. Are you going to the Knicks parade? I am not. I am not going to the Knicks parade. What about Netflix? Well, this one also took a hit yesterday. Still pretty ugly right here, 77. I mean, again, it's semis or bust. Keel getting a nice little move right there, up 4%. The NeoCloud's getting some love. The brokerage is getting some love. Robinhood, this is going to be an interesting one today to see if we can break 110. It's one of the only names outside of all the semis that has actually caught in a real bid. And it dumped yesterday after Warsh said some stuff from 110 to 105. But, I mean, this thing looks like it wants to really continue higher. It looks just like Nebius here. And the prediction market tailwinds, I think, are enough to get the market to be excited. Morale changing with the stock price, that is true. I think there's levers Zucks can pull as well. I mean, there's a very easy lever. Just get rid of the metaverse and maybe shift the focus on compute as a service, selling excess compute. Like, there's a lot of different ways, but, he wants to achieve this super intelligence world, and I don't know if we're easily going to achieve it anytime soon. And neither does the market, which, until then is going to cause more and more of this volatility. I was expecting way more red today. Yeah, I mean, yesterday was a fake pump in the morning, then a fake dump in the afternoon. So this one feels like 24 hours later after the Fed, there's an actual substance to what the market's going to be pricing in. And it's the same dynamics as we've had over the past couple of weeks. Semis and high beta getting some love. Software, barely anything. SPY, look at that, 747 pre-market. So you're starting to get back up above. Cerebrus, that's up 3.5%. And then Bitcoin also kind of in the gutter, 64,000. I know Hood is diverged away from it, but Bitcoin itself has not made as big a move. Zuck's last layoff video was brutal. I could not see myself happy there after that. Yeah. I mean, the other thing is, the memo that they put out on the layoffs, it was just, I saw some people on TikTok explain their experience with it. And, no one likes seeing people get laid off. It's never an enjoyable experience, but the way they did it, 8,000 people, it's never going to be nice, So you probably have some more people just upset about how that played out. Sade under 19. That one's getting hit as well. Mitt, do you think software names are better or semi names are better? Look, software names are more undervalued, but I don't know if that matters. I mean, genuinely, Nebius at 298 could do better than buying a Palantir at 130 or an Adobe at 195. And that's just the reality of it. Now, I mean, put in the chat, is anyone buying Nebius at 298? I know a lot of people have bought this way cheaper, so you probably don't need to, but someone's buying it at 298. That's why it's at 298. And I think the reason that someone's buying it at 298 and not buying a Microsoft at 378 is because they just see more excitement and more alpha and more potential and more value, which, you know, someone may say is absurd if you compare that to a quality of Microsoft with the multiples trading at, but the other person might say, well, this is the nature of the market that we're in. And so it's really, really tough to easily say buying Microsoft over Nebius here will get you a good return in the short term. Now, in the long term, it theoretically should, but it might not for the next 5 years if like the hot stocks are the ones that are part of this AI build. And I think part of the acceptance of this is maybe not fighting the trend. I don't know if that means buying it at these levels. I mean, we saw what happened with SpaceX. I think Nebius is much more reasonably valued than SpaceX, but SpaceX, you know, 230, you get rug pulled pretty hard. And so and that's the thing, you know, that's the thing I was seeing about Hood last night. A lot of people are like, is this pump real? Because no one wants to buy Hood at 110 and then have it fall back to 80. Now, I don't think that's happening because I think there's just been way too many catalysts that have taken place. I think maybe we could go back to 95 on a really bad day. But I think we might get back into the process of normalizing triple digits, just like Nebius has been normalizing at least the 200s. The lowest it got to was 204 last Thursday. But yeah, they're just more exciting in the short term than the Max 7s. Intel, they signed a partnership with Apple today officially. That's why Intel's up 8.7%. Broadcom, there's no news on Broadcom right here. Why is that moving? Why is that up? I don't see anything on Broadcom. Yeah, I see no headline on Broadcom. That seems to be JP Morgan 580 price target. That was yesterday though. Oh, Broadcom announces pricing terms for tender offers to repurchase up to $3 billion worth of stock. I don't think that's new news though. I'm not sure why, but there you go. 410. If you bought the dip on that 4%, that was hitting 375 last night, as that continues now to go green. Serge, thank you for the super chat, man. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here. Micron, again, making a massive, massive move. And Apple validating a lot of the Micron thesis, or the memory thesis writ large, as they said they were going to be raising prices yesterday. That's why Apple's up, but that's also why Micron, SK Hynix are up, as the memory shortage continues to be one of the biggest issues in the broader supply chain. All right, here we go. Thank you, everybody, for being here. First day after Kevin Warsh as the new Fed chair, Thursday, June 18th. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. S&P 748. This thing hit 739 yesterday after Warsh. So it really got hit pretty hard, and it seems like that ended up being a reaction that was just not sustainable to last. There wasn't really a fundamental reason for it to get hit that bad. 748.14. Micron 1100. That is up 6%. Broadcom 410. That is up 4%. Maybe it is that news of repurchasing shares, which is enough to get this to pump. 410 up from 370 yesterday. Zeta, that's up 0.5%. SpaceX opens red, 186. It has not lost the 180s for the past week, so we'll see if that actually gets hit. Robinhood opens green, 108.21. Palantir opens green, 131. Microsoft opens red again, 378. That is down. Adobe, that's down 1.3%. Where is Nebius? Are we almost 300? We are 295. It got to 298. So very close. We'll keep an eye on that to see if we get 300. ARM is up another 7%. I think this is starting to get up there in candidate for stocks of the year. I mean, this thing was $100 in January. 446 on ARM, up 6.75%. Rocket Lab, that's up 0.5%, but getting a dump from the pre-market. Webull, that's up a little bit. Nike, that's up a little bit. IBKR, that's up 1.8% on the day, as that is still seeing a move. Broadcom 407, Micron 1100, SPY 747, Nebius almost still not there, but very close. Bloom 304, that's up 6.9%. Poets up 1.5%. Dell, that's up 3. Tesla goes red, 394. Okay. Meta, slightly green. Google, very slightly green. Amazon, 238. Chris Camillo said he was buying more Amazon yesterday, and he continues to feel this is getting disrespected. 277 to 238. Just a massive move to the downside. Oil continues to fall. Look at that, 74 now. Folks, we are $4 away from going below 70 on oil. And I think that would be a good thing for inflation expectations. And I mean, inevitably, that's also something you have to factor in towards these end of year targets, because at that point, a hike looks like it's off the table. S&P 747.37, that's up 1.12%. Palantir loses 130. All your SaaS names officially, are all of them red? Let's see. None of them survive except CrowdStrike, up by about $10. Everything else is red. Snowflake 4%, Datadog 2%, Mongo 2%, Salesforce 2%. Twilio 2%, ServiceNow down. Wow, ServiceNow 94. This is feeling like April 13th to me. April 13th was the climax of the SaaS apocalypse. We never got below those levels. I mean, like a couple of them did, but like the IGV that day was just, it was bad. That was like Palantir 123. Like those days were really bad. Oracle was at 135 at the time. Oracle now 180, but it's looking kind of ugly. Salesforce officially hit a 52-week low, so some of these names getting hit. Adobe, same thing, officially a 52-week low, 192. Intel, a 52-week high at 135. The money's flowing from Adobe to Intel. Can you blame the markets for doing it? You can be upset about it. I don't know if you can blame the markets for doing it. Intel's more exciting. They have more partnerships. They're growing faster. Their multiple is way more expensive, but you can see them playing a massive role as the TSMC of America. Adobe is video editing software. Like, like that alone, like if we talk about emotions guiding decisions for buying stock, like that alone is a hell of a reason to just want to buy into something that's a bit more exciting. Amcor, is that making the move? Amcor 92. It was at 95 yesterday, up 6.98%. Nebius, again, trying for 300, has not broke through yet. Let me check resistance, by the way. At 300. Where's Nvidia? Nvidia basically flat at 206. Okay, Nebius 300 resistance is 26,000 shares, which I don't think that's going to be too much if it gets the volume to break through. Broadcom, great day, up 4.5%. SpaceX, are we red? Oh my, SpaceX is red. Oh boy, that's an ugly candle. 188 to 182. That is about 100 billion in market cap that just vanished. 2.38 trillion now on SpaceX. Today is quad witching. That is correct. It might have an effect in the morning, might have an effect in the afternoon, but it is a quad witching day. All right, so SpaceX really getting knocked out. SpaceX is getting knocked out aggressively, though. Like, feels like that's more in tune with the rest of the market. Google just went red. Meta looks like it wants to go red. Employees cannot sell yet at SpaceX. I believe it opens in a month, those lockups. And then they're able to sell. Amazon goes red. Palantir, ugly red. Zeta, ugly red. Robinhood trying to hold on, but there's a nice red candle right there. Micron doing great today. Little red, but Micron holding on very strongly. Same thing with Broadcom. Microsoft, I think they want to take Microsoft to like 365 at this point. What was the lows on Microsoft this year? It was 357, if I'm not wrong. It was 355 on March 27th or 26th. No, it was March 30th. It was March 30th. Netflix, red. Take-Two's up on the Grand Theft Auto stuff. Oklo and LEU are up on some of their news. EOSE losing a lot of its pump, but that is green. Reddit, very little bit of the pump. CrowdStrike, are we still holding? CrowdStrike, whoa. That flipped. That makes sense. It's hard for CrowdStrike to be up if the rest of SaaS is down. 695 to 665. Accenture, we looked at their earnings. Kind of sucked. Down 15%. Iran got an upgrade from Jefferies today, 79. Or not even an upgrade. It was an initiation of coverage. So they think Iran is, a decent buy in the space of the neoclouds right here. That one going red is CoreWeave going red. CoreWeave not red yet, but a red candle. Nebius 291. as that one also sees a red candle. Did Hood go red? Hood goes red, 104.90. Interesting. Okay, so you have Intel that's up 9. You have SPY that's losing a decent chunk of action. I mean, got cut in half from the gains that it had in the morning. Microsoft, they're taken to the woodshed. Bitcoin's about to lose 64. It just lost 64, which I don't even think we lost 64 yesterday. No, last time we lost 64 was June 14th. So it's been about 4 days since we lost it. Just lost it right now as the rest of these names come down. Amit, do you think this is because of the expectation of high rates? Yeah, that's the reason you could give it. But once again, I mean, you guys are seeing oil right here. Inflation is going to come down. And if inflation comes down, unless inflation persists, these Fed members have no reason or justification to raise rates. The reason they have is because they think inflation's sticky. Well, if inflation's not sticky, they're not. And the way to make inflation not sticky is to have the biggest proponent of inflation come down. So I don't think, perceptually, yes, market's probably down right now because hikes are being quote unquote priced in. Realistically, I don't think the hikes are going to be that big of a deal. But the SAS move today doesn't feel like it's rate hikes. The SAS move today feels like something else because SAS is really taking it on the chin today. SpaceX loses 180. Loses 180. HIM's still green. Bloomberg had a really big article on peptides 2 days ago. And I didn't get to read through all of it, but I think some of the headlines there kind of highlighted how big the market opportunity is. And that's why HIM's has also been catching a bid. Pounds are down 2%. But that may be part of the reason. SoFi goes red as well. Nvidia at this point is probably going to get 205 today if this continues. 207 right there, just lost 207. ASTS is, down 5. Rocket Lab down 4. SpaceX, someone's selling here, and they're selling aggressively. 177. This was this was very close to the price it was on the day of IPO. I mean, if you played SpaceX, you really had to just you had to buy the IPO and then sell 2 days ago to really play the trade correctly. I mean, you're still up if you bought the IPO, and maybe, some people are diamond handing it, but that was the trade unless this reverses and can catch bid back up to 200. But now you're seeing the rest of the entire market get some red right here. Reddit about to go red. Apple about to go red. Cerebras still up 3. Cerebras holding on. AppLovin gets dumped. Nubank gets dumped. Salesforce is about to lose 150. Unbelievable, dude. I'm not the biggest fan of Salesforce, but you just look at some of these multiples and say, what is going on? I mean, people have totally decided they don't care about these companies. Oracle 178. Yeah, this is a pretty ugly Warsh sell-off right here, and I can't even blame Warsh. Mercado Libre, that's down 1.2. Are they setting up the QQQ for SpaceX funding? That could be part of the reason they're dumping it here so that the Qs get to buy it at cheaper prices. That's actually a very fair point. Could be dumping the entire market for that reason. But the SaaS stuff is a little intense today. The SaaS stuff is we've had some red days in SaaS over the past couple of weeks, but today is hold on, we're just falling off a cliff here. What Salesforce at 145 is going to catch the bid? How low does it need to go? T1 Energy goes red. GEV, that's up 4%. HUD 103.90. Again, I love HUD. I felt 111 yesterday was a little aggressive with the entire market being down. So if we can at least hold triple digits, I'd be happy. I am not going to be greedy on HUD. We can even hold 95, dude. We were stuck at 70 for 5 months. At this point, give me 95 to 100. Let's chill out there. What I don't want on HUD is, we got to 110, then we go right back to 80. That's not fun. I don't think that's fun for anybody, especially because that gets a lot of people into the stock that now they're holding it back. So, if it could happen in a more consolidated way as a long-term investor in this company, I really would appreciate that. And it'd also be easier to stomach that type of volatility. If it just runs all the way up and then comes all the way down, I don't think anyone really wants to see that. CrowdStrike 670, that's down 1.7. Yeah, folks, there's no reason I'm seeing for the sell-off outside, and it's not even really a sell-off. S&P is not even red. It's just those highs of the pre-market getting hit pretty badly right now. I would love Hood back to 90. I'm in a $100 call right now, so yes. See, that's the other thing. It pumps up and people buy all these calls, or they sell all these calls, and then they get hit, right? You want the volatility to be contained to an extent. I don't know anyone who loves seeing SpaceX go from 170 to 230 back to 180. Like, that's just a roller. Unless you're trading that, if you're long-term investing in that or selling puts on that, or like, it's just so much volatility. Same with Rocket Lab, dude. Rocket Lab was pushing 115 yesterday, right back down to 103. Now, it's done a good job not losing 100, but obviously 150 to 103 is not fun on Rocket Lab. The Neo Clouds are doing okay. I know Nebia's sitting at 300, but 289, you can't complain on that. Everyone's holding, even if that falls back down to the 280s. Like, 280 is amazing on Nebia. It was at 204 a couple weeks ago. So the fact that that's holding, I think, is very impressive. NVIDIA right there, 207.85. Amid the SaaS sell-off started today as soon as Accenture released earnings. That's a good point. That might be the reason. I don't know if Accenture matters to Palantir, though, or Salesforce. Like, Accenture is Accenture. Like, Accenture's not stopping ServiceNow from going 20%. But if the market's really using ACN as their proxy on this, then that would be kind of interesting. Western Digital. Okay, so the memory names are your really green names today. Western Digital, Seagate, Micron. Those are all holding on. They're not getting destroyed at all. MicroStrategy getting wrecked. Dude, I wonder what's going to happen with STRC. This is a preferred equity that gives you an 11% yield. He convinced everyone to buy it at 100. It's now down 11%. So if you bought it, the par value of your yield is effectively zero based on the depreciation of the underlying. And that's not good. That's like, imagine buying a treasury bond and you're guaranteed 4.5%, and then it goes down 4.5%. Like, you just lost your entire return. But if Bitcoin keeps going down and strategy keeps going down, then STRC, and at what point do they have to do something to increase the yield on? They're going to have to increase the yield on STRC to get people to want to stay in it, or else people are going to sell. And who knows? Would Saylor have to sell Bitcoin to fund that? That was the thesis a couple of weeks ago. And I feel like that could also invite a lot of volatility into the Bitcoin space at that point. SpaceX 179.30. Sounds like a Ponzi. Well, the yield, whenever someone guarantees you a yield, you have to ask yourself where the yield is coming from. So when money market funds say we'll guarantee you 3.5%, it's pretty easy to say it's not a Ponzi, because the US government, which one could argue the US government is a Ponzi, but if the US government is giving you that 3.5%, it's pretty much guaranteed. If Michael Saylor is giving you an 11.5% yield, just like FTX was willing to give people, 15% yields to put their money there, you got to wonder what's the catch. And the catch is Bitcoin can't go down. And by the way, this thing had $8 billion of AUM. So he convinced a lot of money to buy this shit. It's not like there's a small amount of money. There's a lot of people that are like, oh, 11% yield for free. Cool, I'm taking it. Well, if the underlying's down 11%, the yield just went to zero. NVIDIA 207. Broadcom just lost 410, still holding on to the 400s, but still green. Adobe still getting it. Corning also good day. That's up 4% as well. Marie says, I got my gold card. I'm sure I'm the last to get on. The process was scary quick. My sister just got one the other day. I think you're going to enjoy it, Marie. That 3%. It hits every time you buy something, getting a nice 3% back. We don't talk enough about Hood banking, and we haven't got any new updates on it, but I really do think it's the most underrated part of Hood, because if they can just keep accumulating assets and bring you sticky products to keep you into their banking universe, they can monetize that really well over the coming years. But obviously the transaction volumes is what's getting the street excited. The prediction volumes is getting the street excited. And to be honest, 110 to 104, probably a healthy little drop here. As long as we hold 100, I think that's probably a decent, reasonable drop on Hood after 1% drawdown in the S&P. Salesforce 151, Mercado Libre 1630. Yeah, they need to get Zelle. That's the one thing they need to get. Mitt, would you buy Accenture? I honestly don't know enough about Accenture's multiple or financials. Just perceptually, again, dude, it's hard to buy Accenture. Like, I feel like a lot of the entire consulting ecosystem, it's going to be relevant. It's not going away. You know, it's not going out of business or anything. They have way too many corporate contracts for that to just could be completely commoditized because of AI. But you got to ask yourself, how many people really, really, really think they're going to need some of these consulting services in a world of AI? Especially when those services don't necessarily help you implement meaningful transformational change. So I think Accenture is going to be fine. I just like, you know, why would I want to buy it in the face of so many better opportunities than there? S&P lows of the day, 743. As that goes red. RVI, the Robinhood Ventures Fund, which by the way owns SpaceX now and OpenAI. Oh boy, CME sues the CFTC over Kalshi's push into perpetual futures trading. CME files lawsuit Thursday. That could be another reason Hood is down. Kalshi has been killing it with perpetual futures. They've had 5 billion of volume in a couple of days. Now, perpetual futures are banned in the US. They're only available across the world, but I don't even know how Kalshi was able to make their perpetual futures contracts legal, but they did. No other exchange, including Robinhood, has been able to. I mean, Vlad's talked a lot about trying to get perps into the US, which are essentially levered contracts. You can think of them as options, but there's more leverage on the back end. This is what it means when people like, I'm going 50x, 100x leverage. And so they're not available in the US. The government hasn't legalized them. Kalshi somehow got the CFTC to make them legal. And now it looks like the CME is suing the CFTC over the legalization of it. Rocket Lab 102, which is ASTS getting wrecked, 79 right there, which is not good for Hood because obviously, or Coinbase, because they want to get into it. Redwire, is that getting hit? Redwire is getting hit, 7%. As that is still down. Lewis, thanks for the super chat. NVIDIA might not be going up, but at least it's holding 200 pretty strongly. Yeah, look, I agree. And, I think when we joke about NVIDIA every day or when we criticize NVIDIA, it's more so out of love than hate. It's more so just like, we know this company is so special. We know the market is crazy for not giving it a higher multiple. But the fact that it's holding 200, I do think is encouraging. And, it really needs to go below 200, I think, for me to be interested to buy at these levels if you already have a big position. But you got to call a spade a spade. AMD has outperformed. AMD 534. And it's like, it's been the better buy this whole year. Yeah, space names getting roughed up, folks. Lunar down 5%. SanDisk, is this green? SanDisk is up 8%. Okay, so all the memory names. SanDisk up 8. Western Digital up 11. Micron up 6. Seagate up 6. And then DRAM up 8. Those 5 stocks, folks, maybe that's it for the next year. That's it. Seagate, Micron, Western Digital, SanDisk, DRAM. I think we all should sell everything and just full port those 5 names right now. Right now. We all collectively will get them to new highs and just full port memory. I mean, that's it. That's all. That's what the market wants, right? That is what the market wants. I'm kidding, by the way. But I do think if someone did that, who knows, man? I think they might outperform a lot of portfolios going into next year. Now, it's easy to say that when it's going up. It's easy to say that when SpaceX was at 230, then it takes a nasty... The difference, though, is that those names are actually cheap. SpaceX was just stupid at 230. Like, I think it was stupid enough where even Elon knew it was stupid. Like, it was just like, it was like a meme. It was becoming a game at that point. ASTS down 8% right there. As that continues to go down. CoreWeave, that's up 2.5. Again, the risk right here to the memory names is that the shortage not only continues, but the pricing power continues. And obviously, these are parabolic charts. If there's any way that the thesis gets a hindrance, I mean, those names, I mean, we saw it over the past couple of weeks, right? Little headlines from Google, anything else that could take it right down. Now they end up recovering because, once again, the thesis is very strongly intact. But that thesis changes, then you have a lot of issues. It was funny, even the Perplexity CEO yesterday, right, said Micron should be bigger than Meta. Wow, Palantir 126, completely in the gutter here. We got to hold 125. Hold on. Apple raising prices is validation for memory. Yeah. I mean, that's part of the reason I think they're pumping today. So you get those headlines and you hold memory, you're happy. You have a different headline that takes it down, then you just have to have conviction that the supply-demand imbalance will last. Google almost ready to lose 360. Marvell should be at 300, right? Marvell is at 312. This was at 278 yesterday. Pretty big rebound up here, 312.64. That's up 8% as well. Trump tweet about Palantir coming soon. Dude, when he put the ticker in that tweet, that's when I knew that that you know, it was legit. By the way, Semianalysis. We're gonna have the president of Semianalysis on the show in about an hour. Semianalysis, the biggest semiconductor research firm in the world. So his name is Doug. Excited to have him on. We'll definitely get to ask him some questions about how he's thinking of the memory space right now. But yeah, they are winning. Robinhood 105, trying to get a little bit of a move right there. Akamai, is that green? Akamai, that's red. Gavin Baker has been talking about the CDNs a lot more and about how important they are. Fastly, that one's also red. Cloudflare, one could argue, is the biggest one. Cloudflare, that's down with the other SaaS names. All SaaS is red, so the CDN's also getting hit. As Broadcom continues to try. You know what was so crazy this morning? I was taking a walk early in the morning, and there were these kids. They had to be in like middle school, and they were in front of me, and they started having a debate. And it was this is what told me we are now in an AI world. One kid, they were having a debate about soccer, and one kid was like, "Ask ChatGPT, see what ChatGPT says." And the guy gets out his ChatGPT and he asks the question. And he's like, well, ChatGPT said that. And the other guy was like, no, ask Gemini. Gemini knows it. And the other guy, it was like four of them. The other guy was like, Gemini is bullshit. It never gives you any sources. And I'm listening to this. I'm like, oh my goodness, bro. These kids are like debating their soccer question. It had to be some question about the World Cup around which LLM gives them the better answer. And I'm just listening to this like, dude, these kids are in middle school, you know, for the next 40, 50 years, for the rest of their life, they're going to be asking ChatGPT and Gemini questions. And all those questions are going to require more compute, more memory, more infrastructure, more data center. These kids are not going back to, you know, going into a dictionary or an encyclopedia or even 10 blue links on Google. My kids do the same. But it was hilarious. It was like four of them walking. And like one of them's like, Gemini's trash. It doesn't give you a source. The other guy's like, yeah, but ChatGPT said this. And I'm just like, so there's just like a debate they're having, and they're using these subsidized $1 trillion CapEx built models to help them in their debate. And it makes them more intelligent in the debate because they have this super resource that they can use to get the answer. It's like when I was growing up and we would Google stuff. It's just now that's compute, right? I just remember that from the morning, and I'm like, man, this is not slowing down. It's really not slowing down. And I feel like that's part of the reason why the semis continue to get a bid. Netflix about to lose 76 potentially. Microsoft 375. SPY, it's ugly. It's still up, but looks like it wants to go down. Is SMCI halted? Oh, that's a big move, 7%. I don't see the headline yet. When I was growing up, we used to Google stuff. That sounds crazy, right? That's true. I remember being in our computer lab in 7th grade. Well, we were using Windows 11 or something. It was so slow. And I remember it. Dude, I remember we would try to get on some weird websites, like play video games when like we had a substitute teacher. And like now with AI, there's like just so many different opportunities for these kids versus what I grew up with. Okay, SMCI, what's the headline? SMCI, I don't see it. That's an 8% pop. It has to be for a reason. I don't see it. Oh, you guys are right. It was Windows 7. Yeah, you guys are right. Yeah. I remember we grew up in our apartment, Windows 95. That was what? That was 2010? So it was probably Windows 7. You're right. I don't see the SMCI headline, but that's up 7%. I see no headline. CoreWeave going red. IBM wrecked. 7% on IBM is a little ugly. XP and Vista were the OGs. That is correct. They absolutely were the OGs. I still download music on Napster. That's crazy, bro. I think my sister used LimeWire. I remember. She totally corrupted her laptop back in like 2005. I remember that laptop was gone after like, I think she downloaded like 40,000 songs. It was crazy. SpaceX, 7% down. Looks like the worst day for SpaceX in a while. CoreWeave about to go red officially, 115.68. Amcor loses 90. Memory is still holding. Memory's not letting this go. I mean, you're getting some red candles, I think just because the whole market's going, so they have to get a little bit of red, but they're not really falling. Broadcom, same. When will the Semianalysis president be on? 10:45. 10:45, so in about an hour, he'll be on. And we'll get to talk to him. Palantir, all right, moment of truth, folks. Either we lose 125 and we go to the 120s. I would hope we get a rebound around 123, which is what happened last time. I actually caught the bottom last time. I think 123.79. I posted on X. 300 shares at 123.79. I think maybe I could have got a couple pennies, but I literally got the lows that day. And then, you know, the Trump tweet, and then boom, we rebounded. This time, I don't know, man. I don't know if we're going to have Trump to save us. I don't know if 123 holds. Are we losing 125? She's struggling to hold 125. Lunar down 6%. Marvell still holding. Why are the semis dumping? What? I mean, not the semis, the software name. Like, what's the... Is this the headline? The Pakistanis PM scheduled visit to Switzerland has been canceled with no reason given. Sources claim that since the MOU was signed by Iran and the US, the Pakistani side was informed that there is no need to hold an in-person meeting in Switzerland. So this is what I talked about in the morning. Are we actually going to have a meeting in Switzerland with like a big event, or is the signing of it from last night enough to move on? And it looks like we might not have the Switzerland meeting. I don't know if the market is dumping SAS because of that, but maybe that's the case. Accenture down 17. Okay, Palantir's not giving up 125. Where's Hood? Hood holding on to 104. Trump is not talking today, from my understanding. TSM, though, look at that. All-time highs today. Yeah, today is an interesting day, folks. Most of your semis, what semis are down? None of them. None of them. What's the semiconductor name that's down? Maybe some of the neoclouds are down, but if they're down slightly. All the semis, even NVIDIA's up. It's semis versus SAS again. All your SAS is down. All your semis are up. All your SAS are down. All your Mag 7s, including SpaceX, Apple's holding on to some green. Amazon, NVIDIA, a little bit of green. The rest of them getting destroyed. SpaceX got to 176 at one point, which was the top of the Friday IPO day. Did Trump just post? Yes, Trump just posted. Can we get a Palantir ticker, please? Can we get IGV? Can Trump say software matters? Trump, in all capital letters, oil is flowing. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. The world will be safe. The stock markets are roaring. Jobs are at records and prices are dropping. Our country is strong, safe, and respected like never before. You're welcome. President DJT. Okay. Well, it'd be nice if he said, you know, in the White House, we use a lot of different software to help us function. But instead, we got a "you're welcome." Dude, Trump is like that kid, like in middle school, like that's just like super insecure and like needs the credit for everything. Like, "you're welcome." It's like, it's hilarious, bro. It's like actually hilarious. It's hilarious to the point where literally you just have to laugh and be like, "You're welcome." I tanked everything. I took oil up to 120, massive inflation, had the stock market fall all the way down to 630 on the S&P, and then I saved all of it. You're welcome. But that's what he did with the tariffs, right? Like, this is what he loves to do. He loves to cause the chaos and then be the guy that saves it. And then takes credit for saving it. And I mean, he's done this 2 years in a row. I wonder next year around March or April if we get the next moment of him trying to be a savior for something. SpaceX 179. 179. Microsoft 376 as that continues to go down. Hims, I don't see the Hims news outside of that peptide article that came out the other day. There's got to be something else here that's causing that move, but it's going green in the face of all this red. Same thing with Robinhood holding up. Trump should wear the Meta glasses. Yes, that would also potentially help. Do you think Vive will hold 150? Dude, I've heard a lot about Vive. Did they get into the S&P 500 yet? I still think they're a candidate to get in. I need to do a lot more research on this name. Palantir holding back above 125. SMCI is still moving. But this one's also been one of those names that's struggled this year in software. Viva Systems down 30% right here. Robinhood banking app is down right now, funnily enough. Is it? Did you guys have problems with banking today? I haven't used it today. Yeah, I would imagine it's not perfect, but as long as they really incorporate some of the core strategies there. Nebius 286. Photonics just went red. Rocket Lab went red. The Qs go red. AAOI goes red. It's down. Can't open it. Well, oh, you're right. It's not even loading for me. That's weird. I don't know. That is very weird. Oh, that's not good. App is currently unavailable. We're experiencing a system issue and working to restore access as quickly as possible. Okay, well, you're right. That's not working. TE down 6. Again, this is a Leopold buy. He bought a lot of it at $6, if I'm not wrong. So got some people that are just following it from that level. The Qs go red to green. Dude, it's interesting. The Qs are up, even though all these other software names are getting hit. Maybe we saw the bottom if Palantir gets this rebound above 125.01. But the Qs continue to be green right here as they've flipped pretty nicely. Interesting price action. Again, Trump says oil is flowing. Markets at record high. I don't think he's back in the U.S. yet. He might be. I think no. I think he left last night. But it's definitely not going to Switzerland. Qs are up because the semis, yeah. SMH. I mean, man, maybe this is simply the story we live in. The markets just want semis, and semis it is. At that point, if this continues, this divergence, semis are going to be 20% of the S&P. Right now, they're at 18%. STRC, dude, like what is Saylor going to do here? Like, what do you do when the par value of the preferreds go down as aggressively as they're going down? This thing is not supposed to go down. It's supposed to behave like a bond. Like it's not supposed to have this much volatility. Issue more stock. I mean, that's just going to tank MicroStrategy so hard. I mean, if he does it at the level that's needed to save this thing. If he raises the dividend, he's going to have to eventually sell Bitcoin to fund it. Like, how else is he going to get the money for it? Micron's still up 6.3. All right, trying to see a little bit of a bounce on some of these levels. Looks like the algos are coming in little bit. 103 on Rocket Lab, up from 100. TSM still moving. Him still moving. Sailor is personally responsible for killing Bitcoin. I wonder what would have happened with Bitcoin if you didn't have this like guy just buying it as obsessively as he is. Some people say that's good because it's buying pressure. Other people say that ruined the entire thesis of it. Oh, we might get a Supreme Court case today as well on Lisa Cook. Yeah, I forgot today we might end up seeing that. Here's some coverage on Warsh, and we'll keep going from there.
Are we going to look at minutes and how we communicate that and news conferences? And he was asked, are we going to have news conferences every meeting? And he didn't rule out that we might not. He said, we're going to have it when we have something to say.
Well, he said that on the last quote you had there. Yeah.
We have something to say
when
now.
You have something to say, you say it, but otherwise don't have a, it seems like why have a press conference if you don't?
Right. So the market, I think, will read into when there are press conferences and when there are not press conferences. I will say, David, you know, the next public appearance from Fed Chair Warsh will be in Sintra at the big ECB meeting, which is happening the week after next, and I'll be moderating that panel again.
You will be there.
Yeah, which is great. And it's all the big central bankers of the world, the ECB, the Bank of England, Bank of Canada, and
yeah, that's a big one.
The Fed Chair.
You're on the annual rotation for that one now. You do it every year.
I don't get it every year, but this is a good year to get it.
Were you not last year?
I didn't do it last year, but I did it the previous 2 years on Wednesday.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what we got from the Supreme Court, apparently. Supreme Court challenge to federal law barring drug users from owning guns. Okay, so we didn't get anything on Lisa Cook. We got the U.S. Supreme Court backs challenge to federal law barring drug users from owning guns. Okay, so something with gun rights, not with the Lisa Cook thing. The Lisa Cook thing had to do with the Fed and Pulte and all that stuff, who now might be the Director of National Intelligence. Looks like we're not getting any answers on that. Palantir, little bounce, but you're now seeing it hit red again. A lot of these names might try to bounce just because they kind of have to at certain levels, but they're not really going for a full recovery. Nebius also trying to get a bounce back up to the 290s. MicroStrategy now down 3% as that's going red. Microsoft also trying to get that bounce off 373. SanDisk is going to 3,000 at this point. I mean, 2,100, 317 billion on SanDisk, 2,144. That's up 9.5%. Bloom Energy, 305. This was at 250 last week. Not even last week, on Monday. Almost at 238. As that moves higher as well. Do we have any macro data here? We had job claims in the morning. The inflation rate in the UK actually wasn't that bad. It was 2.8%. So UK inflation not horrible here. And then we're going to have bond auctions later today to see what goes from there. Rohan says, Phoenix, my son says hi to everyone. Hello to you, Phoenix. Thank you for being here. I love that name too. The meaning behind the Phoenix, like rising from the ashes, has always been so cool. So I love that name. Broadcom 407, Akamai down 3. If it really was Accenture earnings that kicked off the semi sell-off or the SaaS sell-off, I feel like that'll reverse pretty quickly because that can't be enough of a reason, but who knows at this point, dude? Okay, let's ask this question. If I had to force you to pick a set of stocks to hold for the next 12 months, this should be a poll. Yeah, simple question. Would you pick software names that are super undervalued? I think everyone can argue objectively they're pretty cheap. Or would you lean into the semis names at these levels? I feel like most people would say semis, but there is a chunk of people that would still say software. Semis, SaaS. One sector to own for another year. You can't own both. Let's say you have to buy Micron at 1100 versus Palantir at 125 for the next 12 months. I think it's an indication of sentiment, but it's also the reality of kind of what's happening here. Qualcomm, that one's making a move today as well. This one fell to 192 last week, now 225. Got up to 228, still green right there. As that's up. Wow, it's actually 50-50. I didn't think it would be this. I don't think it would be this even. I feel like if I had to pick, dude, I feel like I pick semis. In my heart, I know that the software names are undervalued and they deserve it, which is why obviously I would want to do both. I'm also like, man, at what point do they top out? Because again, you can't even say Micron's that expensive, right? Now, the problem is if you pick semis and any little crack happens in the CapEx guide or the supply-demand imbalance or the bottleneck trade, like those things probably fall like a rock. But if that happens and the software names fall too, it's just like, because every time the semis have never rotated into software. The semis have fallen and software just says, oh, you guys are going down, cool, we'll join you. And then when they go back up, the software name's like, well, we don't really need to join you on the way up. Broadcom 408. As that continues to go green. Schwab CEO, he says, let me pull this up right here. SpaceX demand is off the charts in our brokerage. Here's what he said this morning.
About the market is the level of innovation that you're seeing. And the retail investor sees that every day in their life, and they want to be a part of it. And so you're seeing tremendous interest in AI-related names and the space names. I think it comes from the retail investor being able to touch and feel the level of innovation in our economy. And I think clearly they're holding names that are doing, stocks that are doing well with really strong fundamentals. Exactly what the returns will be, only time will tell.
This was like a Super Bowl moment for financial markets. And we learned that there are war rooms. You set up various ones and you increased your team. Can you just give us some color? Where were you during all of this? What was the vibes like in these war rooms that you set up?
It was a pretty amazing event in that it was one of the top 5 most active days for our clients in the 50-year plus history of the firm. And if you think about all the market events we've had over those 50 years, for the IPO to crack the top 5 is pretty unbelievable. We had 140,000 clients call in live. We had lots of digital engagement. It was impressive to see, and our teams were fully staffed, ready, and able to handle our clients' needs that day. It was wonderful to see the teamwork and the effort that went into making this a success on our side.
I mean, top 5 days in 50 years for Schwab because of the SpaceX. That is crazy, bro. SpaceX, little recovery off 176 to 181. But my goodness, that's how much demand was out there for this. Rocket Lab losing that momentum at 104, right back down to 102. Sandisk, Bloom continue higher. Robinhood got stopped at 105. Palantir got stopped at 126.80. DRAM pushing up. Micron pushing up. Corning, that's also pushing up. Nebius is starting to lose pretty much everything for today. Another $2, it goes red. CoreWeave holding on to a little. Adobe, did we lose 190? We touched it. She touched 190. Amid Jason said on Tuesday, TA, that Palantir resistance zone is 125, so I bought it 126 right now. Yeah, I don't know if Jason bought Palantir yesterday, but he was texting me about it. And he might have bought like a call or something for next week. Yeah, he likes it at these levels. I mean, I like it at these levels too. I just, at some point, dude, you have enough. Like, I bought this thing at 123 in April. I even bought it before that. I bought it at 129 a couple days before. Like, at some point, you got enough and you let it just ride. So, I mean, at this point, it would really need to see 115s for me to get excited again. Like, I did my job. I bought the dip in April at lower prices than this. I don't know how much more we need here. But I do think this range, that's why Jason was saying it's got to hold 125. If it doesn't hold 125, we're looking at a lot lower. But if Palantir can't hold 125, service now is going back to 80. I mean, like all these names at the end of the day move in unison with each other. Which is crazy because whenever we looked at Palantir over the past couple of years, we never looked at the other software names. Like we never looked at Microsoft at the same time or Oracle. But now, because IGV got put into this bucket, you know, IGV becomes IGV and it trades everything. So I feel like all of those will just get hit pretty bad. Yeah, Apple's raised memory prices totally benefit the memory names. That's helping them a lot. Intel, are we still 130? Intel 130, 129.90. MicroStrategy, did it fall below 100 yet this year? This year, the lowest it's been is today. No, it got to 104 in February. Damn, dude. Markets are brutal. They will humble you like no tomorrow. They will make you feel on top of the world, and they will also humble you. That's why you got to be a little psychotic to pick individual stocks and play this game. Because, man, the highs are high, and then the lows can be so freaking low. Qualcomm right there. Still up 4. Thoughts on the new QS deal? I think it's good for QS. I don't know if it re-rates the stock in any significant way. It's still down a lot from its highs in January. But Honda's a real client, so it makes sense that they're getting that deal. NVIDIA almost 209. Because that one is trying to break through. Or you could just be a degenerate addict. That is also true. The cool thing about the market is you can play it however you want, right? Like it's literally a free market. You can do whatever you want. You want to buy calls, you want to buy puts, you want to trade this, you want to invest, you want to sell option, like whatever it's just, you have to have the ability to put up the capital that's necessary to be allocated. And if you lever up, you are responsible for, delivering that money back. But the market's purely unemotional. It's the humans that guide the emotions that ultimately guide the market. Rocket Lab right there, 102.79. As that continues to go down. Yeah, banking is still down on Robinhood. Mitt, do you like space for the draft? I mean, if space continues to get sold off the way it is, yeah. Like some of these space names, I kind of don't hate at these levels going into the draft. SpaceX is just joining the space names, though. I mean, SpaceX was diverging for the past couple of days, and now it's kind of just stuck with them going red, which means either the full space bubble is taking a breather, if it was a bubble, or it's diverging into different sectors. I mean, yeah, well, SpaceX at 230 to me was stupid, right? Like I think everyone could objectively agree it was stupid. At 183, it's still kind of stupid. 2.4 trillion. But like I could see it normalizing here versus normalizing in the 230s. Is there any way we can do a community stock draft? There's no reasonable way we can do a community stock draft because the chat can't all agree on one ticker to be inside of like the chat's community stock draft, right? Like that's just not possible because there's too many of you. But I encourage everyone to just pick their own stocks during the same time. I doubt anyone will have the exact same ETFs as any of the 6 of us. And obviously, if we pick a stock, you can still pick that same stock. But yeah, just make your own ETF and have 12 picks. You can follow the same rules. It's just not possible for the chat to have one ETF versus everybody else because there's no way thousands of people will agree on one pick. And there's no, how would we even ask you guys? Like, we can't poll it, like you can't use polls. There's like 1,000 stocks. And then, so if you pick 7th after all 6 of us pick, we're going to pull 1,000 different companies or 993 companies for you guys to pick. Like it doesn't it's just not possible. But you could just do it on your own. And then you could give your results every day when we compare them. And again, I really doubt people will have the exact same ETF as some of us. And if they do, then it's like, okay, cool. You're just playing with the same stocks, but it doesn't have to be that different. SanDisk up 11% now as that continues to go green. Could one person represent the community? Dude, half of you guys hate Trump when he starts talking. Half of you guys love him. And you think one person can represent all of you guys, I think that's not going to work. I think the one person that picks one stock, thousands of you guys will hate him or her for whatever reason. I mean, the fact that we all get along every day, I think is a testament to how much we all care about the stock market, because, you know, like, you have a big community of people in the chat. You had a lot of differences and things come up and people start fighting against each other. I try to do my best to hopefully not be too controversial outside of, you know what I really think. I think what I really do to bring you all together is I make you laugh, because I'm like just hilarious. And so bringing everyone together through comedy has been a good gift of mine over the past couple of years. But obviously I try not to bring up the touchy subjects like politics, religion, all that stuff. But the fact that we all get along every day and we laugh about the stock market, and the most controversial thing that happens are my jokes, which aren't that controversial, to be honest, because everyone laughs. So I don't know why there's that controversy. I think it's pretty special. And we can mess that up pretty quickly by having one person pick stocks for all of you guys, because none of you will agree. Robinhood, 106. 106. Wait, we get along? Until Trump starts speaking, we get along. You're more funny looking than you are funny. Thank you, Peter. I appreciate that. That means so much. Why is Nokia down today? I don't know. They signed a new partnership today as well, dude. This name not cooperating with some of the other semi names. Waymo is recalling thousands of its robotaxis to fix a software issue that could cause the autonomous vehicles to enter and drive at a speed through freeway construction zones. Oh, we didn't even talk about the Bernie Sanders plan. Maybe that's why Google's down a little bit today. Maybe because of that Waymo hit. Okay, so Bernie wants to do an AI bill that will take 50% equity stakes in large AI companies. Some details. This is a supercharged version of what members of President Trump's administration already are discussing, all of which would be unprecedented and a tactic acknowledgement that AI may eventually cause massive labor disruptions. The one-time tax would apply to any company with annual AI revenue of at least $200 million. The stakes would go into a new U.S. sovereign wealth fund overseen by 7 commissioners nominated by the president. It would pay a 5% annual dividend directly to Americans. The bill would also require companies to separate their AI and non-AI businesses, with the government only taking equity in the former. I don't know how they're going to do this, but there is some level of collaboration that Trump has talked about on doing this. And, you know, Bernie's always wanted to do something like this as well. NVIDIA getting a bid right here. So who knows, maybe. But in Bernie's version of it, based on Axios, it says the implication is this would mean that the U.S. government gets 50% of everything from Amazon to NVIDIA to Microsoft or SpaceX. I don't know if Trump, when he mentioned investing in AI companies, was implying he would get 50% of equity. Like, that seems like it's a little impractical. So even if they agree on the idea that they should invest in AI companies, I think Trump is thinking of it as like, hey, we give them money and we get a return. Bernie's thinking of how can we seize some of their assets. And I don't know if that's necessarily going to work out. 50%, dude, that's a lot. 50% of NVIDIA owned by the government, distributed to Americans. Now, granted, if we actually have massive labor market, I'm talking about like mass unemployment, who knows, dude? I mean, there's gonna have to be some level of, Tesla's gonna have to pay a pretty mean Optimus tax if it takes everybody's job. Like, that's just inevitable. I think Elon knows that. But if that doesn't happen, I don't know if it has to be that aggressive. Marvell up 10% as well. Marvell right there, 319. As that also goes green. Siraj Amit, what do you think about MU earnings? I think they're going to crush. I think they're absolutely going to demolish. There's no world in which Micron doesn't crush. It's just, is that being priced in enough, or is that going to 1,500 after those earnings? And that I don't know. I really don't. But I think the earnings will be phenomenal. If you own it at a low average, it's definitely not a reason to sell going into earnings, in my opinion. It could be a sell the news, but eventually that dip would be bought. But it doesn't look like Micron's going to have an issue. I mean, Sanjay already said, third quarter free cash flows at record levels, so it should be fine. SpaceX, once again, going red, 181. Korean stock market hit a record high yesterday. That is correct. Korean Kospi, led by SK Hynix. Investor euphoria hits extreme levels. Bank of America bull and bear indicator stays in sell zone. The Bank of America bull and bear indicator climbed to 8.8 out of 10, remaining deep in sell territory for global equities. Okay, so B of A continuing to say it's time to sell. Do you like Nebius and CoreWeave here? I like CoreWeave a lot better than Nebius at these levels. I mean, I think Nebius is a little aggressive here. I think you could argue CoreWeave's aggressive, but it's also, you know, if you look at their backlog compared to Nebius, a bit more. Having said that, I think Nebius is the better holistic company when you really look at what they're building for the future. So, like long term, I think I'd want to. I mean, if you ask me 10 years, which one, I think it'd be Nebius. I just see such a bigger vision for them versus just GPU licensing. I mean, their ClickHouse stake alone is going to be massive over the next 5 years. And I don't know why CoreWeave's not doing that. Why are they not investing in some of the AI ecosystem, you know? Like, especially these software plays that are actually like building in for like this token factory stuff. Like, I feel like they need to have more of those outside bets. ServiceNow, new low, 94. Palantir, just below 127. Do you own Iran? Yes, a little bit of Iran at 43. Waiting for this deal. A little bit of Keel as well. Waiting for that deal. But they're smaller bets, assuming the deal gets priced in. Do you think the draft could happen through Google Forms? I don't know, man. It's very complicated to do it from that way. Again, everyone's different. Everyone has their own thing. Like, I really doubt all of you guys would agree on the same thing for a draft. So I'm saying everyone you could do it with us at the same time. You know, the odds that you pick the exact same ETF as all 6 of us is very unlikely, even if there's some overlap. So I still think it'll be a way for people to compare their performance. Adobe 194, as that one still continues to go red. Red. QXO, is that up? QXO, that's up a little bit. That should be down if rates are going to be hiked up. So interestingly, then now it did take a hit from last week, but some of your housing stocks trying to get some life. We can barely handle word of the day. Yeah, exactly. Can barely handle word of the day. I am definitely going to use you guys when I make my own picks, though. So I will definitely. I mean, you guys helped me get AMD and Nebius last year. You guys are honestly the reason why I was able to outperform. But we're going to have to see how it ultimately plays out across everybody. Shopify whacked again. Dude, Shopify had a bunch of announcements. Yeah, so you just feel so bad for the employees there because they're just like crushing at so many different levels, doing so many different things. Here's what they introduced yesterday. And the market just does not care.
Shopify unlocks commerce everywhere. Your store, social media, video games, AI agents, anywhere your customers already are. Now more than ever, everywhere really means everywhere. This is the Everywhere Edition. More than 150 updates to help you sell, shop, and build everywhere. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Let's start with your store. It does not just live on your website alone anymore. Your products are now showing up in searches inside of AI chats and shopping assistants. And now your admin shows you exactly how that's going in one place. You track what's working, you fix what is not, and you control who gets your data. And now Sidekick goes everywhere you go. Any screen, every device. Give it a task and just close the app. It finishes it in the background. Open your admin and it tells you exactly what to do next. It is like having a co-founder who never logs off. Okay, so that's your store. But now let's talk about how people are finding it. Running your business is, of course, a full-time job, but running your marketing should not be another one. Shopify now has a marketing engine built right in. You set your budget, you set your guardrails, and run AI-powered campaigns automatically across ad channels and emails.
I mean, dude, I don't think that's getting vibe coded away. They are doing everything to make sure merchants are going to be more successful, utilizing AI to automatically create advertisements that then get distributed immediately across all the different channels of distribution. I think they're going to be fine. But it's a SaaS company, so the market is obviously upset. Here's the Accenture CEO talking about their quarter after today's results.
Exclusive interview with Julie Sweet, Accenture CEO. Julie, it's good to have you. The stock is getting shellacked here. So what happened?
Thanks, Sarah. As always, it's good to be here. Let me share our view of the quarter. So we made significant progress in positioning Accenture to catch the AI tailwind as it scales. I'm talking to CEOs every day. They're turning to us to say, help us get ready, help us capture value. And you see that in our results. We grew 3%. We added $1 billion in revenue, taking market share.
Look, I know she's trying to sound excited, but we grew 3%. Like that alone, when Micron's growing 600%, like it's hard, right? She tried to say it with some excitement. We grew 3%, but you could tell like in her voice, it's like you're manufacturing some level of excitement. Like it's 3%. I don't know if that's enough. Not in this market environment to really get people excited.
Again, we did $19.3 billion in new sales. And that includes more $100 million bookings quarters. We're now at 104 clients this year, 13% more than last year, signing with us because they believe that we're going to deliver value. EPS grew 9%, and we're on track to return to shareholders $9.5 billion. And we did that even while we absorbed the negative impact of the Middle East conflict. And as you said, we are investing for long-term growth. That's how we see the quarter.
But there's obviously a disconnect from how Wall Street sees it. I mean, one of the things that you can look at is organic revenue growth, which is low single digits at this point, where your commentary about demand sounds very strong. So why aren't we seeing that reflected more in the numbers?
Sure. On the revenue side, we missed consensus by 90 million, and we had a $100 million impact from the Middle East. And on the sales side, as I said, we signed 19.3 billion, and our sales are lumpy. So we can have a couple of sales, which we did, move out to FY27, and that impacts it. The work that we're doing, like for McDonald's, for example, where they're modern, they're a great example of how global brands are modernizing how they run their business, and we're helping them, have the connected operations behind their customers. Or a Stellantis, them, they make Jeep, among other things. We're embedding AI across their global footprint in manufacturing. We're starting to see with things like what we're doing at Stellantis, companies move to AI projects that are larger, but it's because they already have, and we've been helping them building on the reinvention. They have the digital core. So it's still early days for big AI programs, but you saw a lot of progress with that. And that's because we're delivering value. And we had another quarter of 100 clients who have started their first
But Julie, then why
AI
did you lower
project.
guidance? I mean, the previous guidance was 5% rise in revenue, and you lowered it to 3 to 4.
I didn't know they lowered guidance. I didn't know that. That's probably another reason it's getting hit.
Absolutely, Sarah, because as we explained in the quarter, right, the Middle East had a $100 million impact, and the indirect impact started in the last few weeks of the quarter.
You guys buying that? Can she blame Iran on this one? Can she blame the Ayatollah for decreasing guidance by 1.7%? I don't know if the street is going to be okay with using that as the excuse.
So we expect for Q4 that we're going to have more of that. It's not going to change, right? So we always call it like it is. The fundamentals of the business, huge progress. You can see that in our numbers. We had impact in the Middle East, and we had some managed services, large ones, push out to FY27, and that's affecting Q4. But we also are seeing great growth in our investments, right? So we've been growing in data centers. That's growing very high double digits, and we're super excited about the latest investment of nearly $4 billion in OT security. So we're taking a $10 billion business that we've grown 35% CAGR over the last decade, and it just got a whole lot bigger. Again, we are investing for the long term.
Julie, on this total new bookings, actually were down, I think, 2% in dollar terms year over year. You're highlighting the 13% growth in 100 million plus client bookings, but I wonder, investors don't seem to be looking past sort of the headline bookings decline. Can you address that?
The investors, I think, are missing the AI tailwind and how we're positioning ourselves for the long term. As I said, we had an impact. It was all in consulting, $100 million that impacted on our revenue side. But when you look at our book, at our sales, right, our consulting sales are up, and we still did $9 billion in managed services. So we feel very confident about the underlying demand, and you see it in the numbers.
All right, you're talking about clients sort of moving from using AI to, I think, running on AI. But overall consulting revenue growth is about 1%, again, coming back to local currency. So, you know, one of the keys here would, I guess, be, Julie, I would wonder whether this AI narrative you're talking about, when that's going to actually show up in the top line growth rate. When is that going to be?
You know, we believe that you're going to continue to see the AI growing, which is what we talk about with, and we're seeing that, for example, in our big deals, we're doing more consulting now because clients are doing more reinvention. And so we do believe that we're going to start to see that tailwind. The exact timing really depends on how fast enterprises are ready to scale. And there's a lot of work to do to still scale, right? Data is a big...
This is bad. This is bad. I don't get what she means by the timing of the growth depends on when enterprises are ready to scale. Anthropic went from 4 to 40 billion in 15 months. That's all enterprise. That's not consumer. Palantir is doing 100% or 85%. That's all enterprise. So enterprises are obviously dying for AI solutions that are meaningful, that deliver value. I mean, it's like, and not having a timetable. The time is now. The time is currently right now to get enterprise to adopt it. If you can't grow now, I mean, what does the model have to get 10 times better to start growing? Like, this is, you could tell why the stock's getting hit here today.
Barrier. A mindset is a big barrier, right? The change that's required. Because keep in mind, when you're doing something at scale, you're actually changing the whole way you run, how your process is, your skills of your people. And that's why parts of our business, like LearnVantage, where we're helping upskill, are growing double digit, because we are helping clients with the fundamentals that they need to have in place. So AI scaling is going to take some time, but we are very optimistic. And we're optimistic because we see what our clients are asking us to do, and that's what you're seeing in our numbers.
So is there's, just to be clear, because this is what the scuttlebutt is, there's no negative impact of AI on your business, or no sort of crowding out of traditional IT services and consulting spending from enterprises as they invest more on tokens and LLMs?
As they invest more, they're turning to us to figure out how to actually get value. You know, you don't do a $100 million booking with a client with a partner unless you believe that they're going to deliver value. And so, you know, this quarter is really explained. Again, we missed consensus by 90 million. The Middle East was $100 million impact, right? So, what we've been saying, these themes around large deals for reinvention, we're demonstrating that they continue to grow. So AI is going to be a tailwind. We are best situated because our clients are actually looking for more like real change, which we call reinvention. And we talk about, we've seen that over the last 3 quarters, and our consulting bookings are up because they're turning to us to actually do more change, which is a great sign for how AI is going to play out in the future.
Julie, I always appreciate your willingness to come on, rain or shine, so to speak. But I think your investor base and others are listening to you now, but they're also looking at that year-to-date 50% decline. I mean, the company has lost half its value over the last year. It's somewhat discordant from what I'm hearing from you, and I'm just curious as to how you can acknowledge that, or whether you acknowledge that, and kind of thinking about your investor day coming up in October, what you're going to communicate to try to turn this thing around on the stock front.
Absolutely, David. And of course, we take that very, very seriously, and we continue to communicate about what we're doing, and we continue to post the numbers. And at the same time, we've got a great long-term growth story. We're deploying $9 billion of capital. When you think about OT security, the play that we just met, building on our cybersecurity, the entire physical world is getting connected. And you cannot have an AI revolution unless you have critical infrastructure like pipelines, grids, manufacturing plants, and you can't keep them unless you secure them. And we are making a big play there. We've just invested in a terrific company in Italy, which has which combines services and platform in the high growth health sector. We just completed our UCLA acquisition, which is in data, critical for AI. We are systematically investing, and that's what we're going to share when we're in October, the combination of all of the investments we're making to position for the long term while we every quarter grow our relevance and our delivering value for our clients. It's what you see in our $100 million bookings and more.
Yeah, speaking of the investments, Julie, I wanted to ask you about the announcements today, the cybersecurity.
All right. Look, I am not a C-suite of a public company. I'm not a CEO of a public company. I don't have to go on national television and justify or defend my stock being down 50%. So I have a lot of respect for someone like Julie and all these other CEOs that have to take the good with the bad. But I think you can tell in her voice and how she's talking, she understands that she's not saying this, but implicitly, explicitly in the numbers, this model that they built, at one point it was a $250 billion company, Accenture, now $86 billion, is cooked. Like, why are bookings declining? Why is guidance declining? And if guidance wasn't declining, okay, maybe guidance kept 5% instead of 3%. Like, that is just not exciting. Going down is even worse, but if it doesn't go up, or if it stays the same, or if it goes up by 1 or 2%, that's not something investors can hold their hat on. And so I think she's trying to make the argument that AI is not having an adverse impact on her business in terms of bringing in more enterprise revenue for digital transformation. But I think the tech companies like a ServiceNow, Palantir, et cetera, are actually the ones that are creating that digital transformation. And they're the ones that have the margins and the actual value creation to justify their contracts that customers continue to re-up with on. Accenture does not. Accenture has 780,000 employees. Yeah, she needs a task force. I mean, like, now again, at these levels, maybe it's a good buy because it's just down so much. But I mean, they went hard on her on that interview to like really question, what do you mean? Because I think here's the thing: if Accenture collapses, like, you know, it's still an $88 billion company. Let's say this thing just completely gets destroyed. I mean, those are hundreds of thousands of people that either lose their jobs or have to go into a new field. And I think that's the broader question, which is why I thought those questions were really important around, hey, like, is the AI thing working for you guys, or are you getting hit by it? And if you are getting hit by it, why? And is there a path to get out of it? And she just wouldn't acknowledge that they are getting hit by it, even though the numbers make it obvious. She blamed Iran, which I guess you can do for now. But if that doesn't change in the coming quarters, then, you know, maybe that's still an issue. Nebius, by the way, losing the entirety of the pump. That pump went to Marvell instead of Nebius. Marvell right here, $2 away from breaking through 52-week highs. Nebius 298 to 277. She needs Palantir. We'll see. Accenture, Deloitte, they all have partnerships with the tech companies like Palantir. But I don't know if that's enough because, again, Accenture doesn't get an 80% gross margin. They get a little commission for helping implement some of this software and working with these service integrators, but they don't own the end-to-end value chain like a Palantir or a ServiceNow does. And if those stocks are getting destroyed and they're growing phenomenally, what do you think happens to Accenture when they're not even growing anymore and they're just essentially seen as the middleman? Meta back at 570. So I think it just makes you wonder where that industry is going. BE, that's also up. Netflix, that's up. Marvell, again, this all happened after Jensen said they're going to $1 trillion. And that is enough to keep this momentum. Marvell did hit 330 in the overnight hours back then. 324 only when the market was open. So that's really the all-time high it's trying to break through. Robinhood flipping green again, 107. So bottomed at 103. There's your run up, 103 to 107. Do they really have 800,000 employees? Yeah. I think it's like 780,000, something like that. But it's definitely a decent chunk of people. All right, folks, let's bring someone onto the show that I mentioned earlier today. Very, very, very excited to have the president of Semianalysis onto the show today. Semianalysis is a very important company. It's also a company that I think a lot of people have been talking about in a variety of different ways. Why? Because they tend to get, quite frankly, all of the attention when new research comes out, when there's new analysis, when there's new ways of thinking of what's happening with social media in general. And so excited to bring them onto the show today. I know a lot of people have some questions, want to pick their brains around, in general, what's going on in the memory space, the semiconductor space, and overall, what's happening in this AI revolution. Doug, thank you for joining the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Hope you can hear me all fine.
Yep.
So
you're perfect. Audio
perfect. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
So I do a market open show every day, and there's a lot of retail investors here that kind of think of it as like an online version of Bloomberg or CNBC. And a lot of people here have made a lot of money over the past 5 years investing in semiconductor stocks and semiconductor analysis. So, a lot of times we reference your Substack and look at the research and all this stuff, and Dylan Patel's quite the character. So super happy to have you on and talk about this stuff. I want to get started with just this broad question. Super broad. I'm curious where you go with it. Where do you think we are right now in the broader AI revolution, and how do you think the next 5 years plays out for AI writ large?
I don't want to say early days. I definitely think we're past, let's say, early days. We're in a part where you're starting to see the market is really starting to adopt it in a big way, meaning that like many companies are starting to spend actual P&L, billions of dollars of token spend for some of these large corporates. And that's, it's definitely not inning one. But I think we're clearly in the, I think Leopold calls it the new industrial revolution. I do think that that's not completely off. There's going to be some bumps along the way, but it's clear that almost every aspect of our lives in terms of technology, as well as everything to do with information, is going to change drastically. So I think that that's how I think about it. Is this is going to be a long build out. I wrote a thing about railroads a while ago, like that. When the economy changed from an agrarian society into an interconnected global market, it took 10, 15 years to really build out all this infrastructure. And during the railroad cycle, which I think is probably going to be, I think it'll be shorter, in terms of like how much building is going to happen. It took 50 years, man. 50 years to build all this infrastructure. Then after, you built some of the core railroad, then all of a sudden you see like the rest of the economy and the rest of the country kind of connected together. That's kind of what I see. And I see that there's going to be a very long cycle in terms of how this interacts and impacts every part of our lives. So, yeah.
So in your opinion, we keep hearing this argument that we are massively compute constrained. You wouldn't disagree with that?
I think there's a lot of really great anecdotes. Some of the work that's the easiest to look at is the secondary price of GPUs, right? If you think about it, the most important price indication is the secondary market. Where supply and demand cross is price, right? And so in the secondary market, we know that supply is going up quite a bit, but demand has gone up a meaningful amount. And so what we're seeing is the price of GPUs have gone up 40, 50% year to date. Some of this for some of the older H100 class GPUs. And so what does that tell me, at least, is that there's quite a bit of demand.
Okay, so I want to ask then this question as a follow-up on the idea of GPU rental prices. NVIDIA, how are you thinking of NVIDIA right now as a $5 trillion company? A lot of people that I know are a bit annoyed that the market is not really respecting NVIDIA the way that they're giving the multiple to a company like AMD, which has had the CPU explosion. NVIDIA, ironically, doing the most amount of revenue when it comes to CPUs. So you guys have written a lot about NVIDIA. I mean, do you still think it is obviously the most important name in AI at the moment?
I think it's the most important name in AI. I think the best analogy of this is actually like when Apple became #1 market cap in the world in 2015, 16. There's kind of this really big narrative that essentially, and you could kind of line it up where it's like, okay, Apple won the entire market and there's going to be competition coming, and it wasn't just going to be an iPhone only world, and iPhone volume sales were kind of mature. I think you can say that is not completely off in terms of the analogy to NVIDIA, but Apple was growing 15% a year at the time, and NVIDIA is still growing 70, 80% a year.
Right.
And so I think that's kind of the hard part, is that I get why the multiple is derated, But if you look out to the future, and if the multiple stays the same, they continue to grow EPS at the same, then the stock should work out. But I think it's kind of a curse of being the king. When you're the biggest company in the world, it becomes harder to have more incremental buyers than sellers, right? You have to find a lot of money in the proverbial couch cushions, right? And so I think that what really fixed the Apple narrative was that they started to buy back shares. And I think NVIDIA has committed now to 50% of free cash flow to shares. And I think that is going to take a while, but that's probably what will cap and maybe make the company price at least much more supportive.
Do you think Jensen is accurate about Marvell being the next $1 trillion company?
Dude, I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I think it might happen, whether if earnings be damned, right? Marvell is a really interesting company, all things considered. I think there's a lot of chatter in their potential custom hyperscaler wins. But at the end of the day, in a big world with Broadcom and NVIDIA, I don't think Marvell is quite the same. But to be clear, those are both $1 trillion companies. I just think
why did Jensen say that then?
Dude, I don't know, man. Jensen, I guess Jensen was kind of looking around and seeing. I actually don't know. I mean, you have to ask Jensen, right? But I think. Okay, so first off, it was like a $250 billion company when that happened. So you're like, wow, a casual 4x from here. I think it's pretty clear that there's a lot of important systemic valuable players, and Marvell is one of them. And I think his kind of take was like, yeah, everyth's a $1 trillion company. So I don't know if that's like perfect in terms of like, should it be a $1 trillion company? I guess you could say if Bloom Energy or a lot of other smaller companies who trade at pretty hefty multiples are trading where they're at, why not Marvell? I think that is definitely a case where you can make.
The neoclouds. You guys have written a lot about the neoclouds. Nebius and CoreWeave have obviously captured a lot of people's attention. Jim Chanos has recently gone short the neoclouds. I guess high level, do these business models make sense to you? And do you think renting out capacity for GPUs because of the compute constraints is a investable idea that people can trust 10 years from now will be around when the build out maybe doesn't need to be as compute constrained as it is today?
So, okay, in 10 years, maybe not, but 10 years is a long time. Like, non-ironically, I think we're like AGI by then. However you define AGI, I don't mean it like ASI, super intelligence, but like able to meaningfully change how information work is done 100%. And so I think the thing that's really interesting from that perspective is that, a GPU is just not a GPU, right? We have this product, or not this product, we have this project, honestly. We give away the information for free called ClusterX. And what that is we go and we test hundreds of neoclouds, like neoclouds you've never heard of. And in theory, a car should be a car. You should be able to drive it off the lot and it works. In reality, the driver really matters quite a bit in terms of your experience. And a CoreWeave GPU you rent off the lot versus I'm not going to name them, one of the bronze tier GPUs you rent off a lot can be a very, very vastly different experience. And I think one of the cool things we have is we've tested over 100 companies. And so what we've seen is that there's clearly a class of neoclouds that are going to make it, meaning kind of the CoreWeaves and Nebiuses of the world, where they're actually very good at what they do. And we argue they're better than the hyperscalers. So that's like, you got to kind of flip it there. People are like, oh, how do they compete with Amazon? Dude, Amazon is a corporation and you're competing against a team of people. But when it comes to renting a GPU, I would take CoreWeave over Amazon every single day. And so, there's clearly a competitive aspects that I think is maybe underappreciated, but what we've seen at least year to date is that the market has really rewarded the shortest term leases. And so CoreWeave, when they went and did the IPO, they're like, hey, we have these long-term leases. So every single project we have is like super backed by finance, versus Nebius had these shorter term leases. And so the problem is, if you have this long-term lease and the price is gone up 50%, you don't really get to rain. You don't get to make money when it's raining, right? And so that's kind of what we're seeing with Nebius, is that we saw the much shorter term contract rentals means that these prices roll over. But eventually, some of these contracts are going to start to roll over, and it'll benefit CoreWeave. We think the entire compute complex today is very, very, very supportive. Now, I definitely think that it's ironic that the best players in the space kind of have the least torque to the upside. But it's clear that in the next 3 to 5 years, especially as each generation of compute comes online, it's going to be harder to kind of manage these things, not easier. A GB200 is meaningfully harder than 8x H100 server rack, right? And the VR200 or the Kyber or whatever next architecture we're going to see is going to be meaningfully harder than the previous one to essentially manage. And so I think that that's where like most of the competitive advantage comes from, is that, yeah, maybe there isn't, there isn't super long-term differentiation and being able to like rent and manage a GPU. But the phrase is speed is the moat. Most of these companies, this is a really new space. Pretty much in 2022, the world for GPUs was something like 10,000 GPUs. Now that seems to be table stakes, and so there's only a few players who really have the experience to take it to the 100K or 1 gigawatt scale. So,
are you a fan of IREN as NeoCloud?
So we are not fan. And so okay, let me put some asterisks on this. IREN as a NeoCloud, if you look at our ClusterX rating, and people really hate us for this, is not the greatest, let's say, GPU manager. But one thing that I can unequivocally say is IREN has something that no one else has, and that's a power pipeline. That is extremely valuable, and we love the hell out of their power pipeline. And so, you can have opinion on whether they're a great manager of GPUs or not, but I think that doesn't really matter, because the thing that matters is they have more power than most other of the NeoClouds, and they're going to be able to win some big contracts because of that.
AMD, the rise of CPUs, I think, with agentic inference is something that maybe the deep AMD investors knew about, but the general investing public didn't really understand how important it was going to be. Obviously, the markets were worrying that ARM, Intel, AMD. How do you think of the multiple expansion on these names versus NVIDIA, which is selling the most amount of CPUs? Do you just chalk it up to, AMD was a $500 billion company, it could easily get to $1 trillion? Or do you think the market is overrating the level of growth in those CPUs?
I think they're overrating the level of growth, but I'm not going to say that it isn't super exciting. By the end of the year, I have a strong feeling if we look back in 26, who will be growing faster, NVIDIA or AMD? The odds are it's probably still NVIDIA. But the thing that's kind of exciting is that this CPU opportunity is a big one. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity. The 1-to-1 attach ratio thing is like, it's not going to happen, guys. The reality is the most important part of this, accelerated inference, is actually the GPU and the memory and all the stuff attached to it. But I think for the first time in the last 5 years, CPU has a real attach story that I think is underappreciated. I don't even think the hardcore AMD investors really appreciate what's going on here. So the way I think about it is, when you're doing this the agentic AI project, right? You're doing all these tokens. All these tokens are streaming in and out, and they're making all these like classifications of work. And what we find is, at the end of the day, most of the power is coming from the engine. And the engine in this analogy is the let's say the NVIDIA GPU. That is the engine of the car that's moving, let's say, a bus or a Ferrari. But these agents are using tools. Like, in order for it to do a web search, or in order for it to write a file, or in order for it to do a grep function, those are all typical CPU tool calls. And so what we're seeing is that the agent in the middle is starting to use all these tools, and you're like, okay, well, are you going to make sure your Ferrari goes fast because it has a shitty pair of tires? And the answer is no, you're gonna have a nice pair of tires. And I think another part of this story is that, like, there is this underappreciated fact that these CPUs are historically a little cyclical. 5 years ago was COVID, right? Let's say 2021, right? 2021 and 2020 were the biggest builds in CPUs in the cloud ever. And the depreciation cycle usually means that these are when the CPUs start to be turned over. So we have two kind of perfect storms. We have a refresh cycle of these CPUs in the cloud, where clearly it makes a lot of sense to buy a new one. And then on top of it, you see a new demand vector. And so what I think that means for CPUs is CPUs are not, I don't think that's going to happen, but I do think CPUs kind of go from that long-term, let's say high single digits of like 9% a year to maybe 15 to 20% a year for the foreseeable future. And for a company like AMD, who's clearly dominant in the x86 CPU space, that really matters, and it does kind of rip their results. So I do think
the cyclicality of CPUs is not a thing anymore.
I think it is. Okay, dude, there's cycles everywhere. Okay, there's always a cycle in semiconductors. Don't kid yourself. But I think it's kind of like this. So the last 5 years, I talked about, like, hey, the 5-year refresh cycle. There's kind of this thing too, is like, dude, for the last 5 years, if you're a hyperscaler, what have you been doing? You've been trying your absolute best to buy the minimum amount of CPUs possible to go buy as many NVIDIA GPUs as you can. And so now you look around and you haven't bought CPUs for 5 years, and you're like, well, shit, I think we need CPUs. And so you have to buy CPUs that you have to refresh, and you need these new tires to your wheel. And so all of a sudden, that's a huge order volume. And I think investors are maybe overcapitalizing that, meaning that like this is clearly a long-term demand vector, but I think they're like, oh, it's growing and it's going to grow like this actually it's going to grow faster than this forever. That's probably the wrong conclusion. But is it going to grow at this higher new sustained speed as long as the larger agentic economy does? Yes.
What do you think about the CapEx growth of the hyperscalers? Are you at all worried that as their stocks continue to go down, at some point the board tells Zucks, dude, you can't do this anymore. It's getting ridiculous.
So Zuck is special because he controls the company. So I think he's going to do whatever the hell he wants. There's never the joke is there's never been a trend he's never wanted to be a part of, and I think he's going to issue shares. I think the thing that's I think the thing is the harder part of this whole thing is how much cash flow can these guys handle. And I think the thing that changed is the Google equity raise. The $100 billion Google equity raise is probably the largest secondary, and I think it's larger than the Saudi Aramco IPO was. And I think that with some of the other secondaries we're seeing and the IPOs means that we're kind of in like a new era of like capital issuance. So I wrote something like in 2024 that like the Oracle first round of big time debt up was like a big deal because it wasn't just going to be like cash on hand. It isn't just from doing the business. I'm going to go to the bank. I'm going to buy some GPUs too. Now they're saying I'm willing to sell part of my business to also buy more GPUs. And that's like the big new thing that I think is going to take like the free cash flow probably goes to zero, but you can support that if you issue equity and you issue debt. And what we're seeing is for the first time, people are issuing debt and equity. So that's kind of a big deal. What that means is kind of interesting because if the capital markets are really open for it, we're talking trillions of dollars. We're talking trillions of dollars available. But the more you borrow from the future, the crazier it can get, good and bad. If the world ends up being, and I'm pretty bullish AGI and all this stuff, but you look at the history of this, there's always overexcitement in the crash, but like I clearly think in the long run, this is like the overexcitement will be justified. But you got to think of this like a party, man. Like the more you borrow from the future, the more hungover you're going to be tomorrow. So that's like maybe my original analogy when they first were starting to do debt. It's like the first drink at the party, the music's blaring, it's starting to feel a little good. Now people are kind of getting a little bit really excited. They're doing shots, okay? An equity issuance is a shot. People are getting really drunk. And the question is, it's like, dude, but the thing is, there's still a chance that like, things are good. The problem is when it becomes crazy, like everyone is doing crazy amounts of alcohol, super binge drink. It's 5 a.m. You wake up and you're like, dang, we don't have enough cash flow to support all of this. That's the really bad scenario. But I think we're not there yet, meaning that people have had a few beers, people had a shot or two, but it's clearly at a place where as long as, the party keeps going, I think it's very recoverable. So I don't think no one is at a place where they can't service any debt or they can't service any equity or there isn't any demand. Most of these companies are generating a shit ton of cash, the hyperscalers included, mostly from cash from operations. But yeah, there's a lot they could continue to do.
Do you think the token cost going down on Anthropic and OpenAI is good for the hyperscalers, good for the Jevons paradox of volume of token generation, good for the SaaS companies that are processing the tokens? Or how do you think token economics are going to play out over the coming years?
Yeah, man, tokenomics is probably the most interesting space in the whole thing. I think it's very, very, very complicated, very kind of interesting. And when you say tokens going down, what do you mean here? Because I think the gen on gen from Opus to Fable, prices went up. Right. But it's crazy because prices go up, but the task efficiency kind of actually means the real price you get paid is kind of flat. And honestly, I think it's healthy for prices to continue to go up for capability of the leading edge, because what the worst thing you want to see happen is massive price cuts. And then everything kind of just it's printing deflation. That would be like the absolute worst case. And so I think as long as there's some pricing power, it kind of creates some margin that's, I think, good for the economy in the world. I don't want this to be China, where everyone is just pushing out zero gross profit, dollar cars and stuff. There won't be profits, and that kind of really kills the vibe of capitalism. It's a different way to do it. Just like, are you going to make output for the sake of output, or are you still going to have margins? And I think the thing that maybe is underappreciated, even in the Ed Zitron OpenAI leaks, dude, the thing that people need to appreciate is while the subscriptions are massively subsidized, the API business is so freaking profitable. I think it's well north of 70-80% gross margin. And I think that is maybe the number one most underappreciated thing in the entire tokenomics space, is that Anthropic and OpenAI on an API basis is printing cash. There's no way about it. They're printing cash. It's the subscriptions and the power users in the subscriptions where they lose money.
Do you think Ed Zitron is a healthy skeptical voice, or is he missing the forest for the trees when it comes to analyzing AI?
You need skeptics, dude. The world, I think it's in the information economy and in the marketplace of ideas, you need skeptics. And I mean, ironically, his leaks are very valuable information for a company like us. Like, seriously, like, it's, dude, like, some stuff I'm like, wow, this is crazy. Thank you. This really helps us. And, I think the thing that's really crazy is people come to the world with a pre-idea of what they want to happen. And Ed goes and looks at this and says, the world is so bad. And one of the things that you're able to do is you're able to look at the same set of numbers and you're like, dude, actually, this is like pretty good on a unit economic basis. And I think that that's like kind of the difference, is that being a little bit not like coming to the party with a bad opinion and saying, and I feel like I should kill the party analogies, but like coming to the show and be like, dude, this show's going to suck. And because you hate the band and you're like this, and then you leave and the band sucks. And you're like, I don't know, I'm pretty open-minded. Like, I'm curious if it's good or not. Right. And I think what we're seeing is, from a unit economic perspective, the unit economics of inference today are pretty good. I think the Chinese models are kind of where it's a little different, where the concept of involution, I don't know if you guys should look it up. This is like a very valuable concept, where essentially it's output for the sake of output and just nuking margins. That is bad, because what happens is gross margins go to zero. Everyone just does this giant treadmill of more output until there's oversupply. That's not good. So I think that's kind of where I see quote unquote unhealthiness in this space. But I think what the Chinese models show you is that there is quite a hefty margin for the leading edge models.
Doug, we're getting a breaking headline here from Bloomberg just now. Amazon is in talks to sell its custom-made AI chips for use in other companies' data centers to cut NVIDIA Corporation's dominance. The third version of Amazon's AI accelerator, Trainium, is largely sold out. There's already strong interest in the fourth version expected next year. Do you think these hyperscalers eventually just say, we are going for the throne and we're not going to keep paying the NVIDIA tax?
Yeah, I think that's what everyone wants to do. And I think it's a healthy thing in the very long run. I think in 2024, when it was a 95 or maybe even 98% market in NVIDIA, I don't think everyone looked at that and said, yeah, this is really healthy. I think, I'm a student of semiconductors longer than just this cycle. And I want to tell you that in these markets, and I mean, there's so many markets, like from the Bluetooth chip in your, smart device to the DSP and a pluggable to, to gaming GPUs. There's usually this like very tread over market share pattern that shows up over and over again. I would say it's about 60-30-10. Meaning there's three big players, 60% it goes to the big market leader who usually makes the most profits. 30% goes to number two, who makes a pretty healthy profit. And then there's this like third shitty company that like kind of stays around and doesn't really make has some good years during shortages, has some bad years during busts. And that's the third player. I think I would not be surprised to see it look like a 60-30-10 market. And I think it's clear who's number two. It's the TPU at Google. And does Trainium look like it could be number three? Possibly. Is it kind of Trainium versus AMD, who's kind of fighting for that number three accelerator spot? I think so. But I think the thing that Amazon has that AMD does not is power. Amazon has a crazy amount of power, and their data center capabilities are like bar none. They're the fastest at time to power, and they have this huge pipeline. I think we've written about it in Semianalysis that none of the other hyperscalers quite can do. And so that's how I think the Amazon perspective, and honestly, even the Google perspective, is their goal is to secure the watts and then use the watts to translate it into compute and then sell the compute and make a full stack margin. Google was first at this, and they were actually really conservative. They were very behind the ball. But last year, I think Google changed and really started to step on the gas. And what we've seen since then is they've really added a lot of, like, they're the biggest incremental buyer in the data center space because they have all these TPUs that they want to place. And they kind of want to, in some ways, TPU is kind of becoming kind of a neocloud. Honestly, Google will be a neocloud. And actually, the other thing I was going to say, I'm not surprised to see Amazon kind of copy this exact same strategy. The other thing I want to say that might be a breaking item. Did you see Noam Shazir left? That to me is the bigger.
Yes, we thank you for
that is,
yeah. So
dude,
he was part of
been wanting
DeepMind, and now he's in OpenAI. Yeah.
Okay, so I want you to know, this is an anecdote, and that I think you can get this in the information, where they talk about like, why did Gemini 2.5 all of a sudden become good? My understanding is because Noam Shazir was there. Like, that's it, dude. There's literally an early day of OpenAI GPT-3, and some of the researchers went to Noam's a lecture series, and kind of just followed exactly what they were trying to do over and over. And then all of a sudden GPT-3 started to really work. Like, I cannot express how good this guy is. He's a co-author on the Transformer paper. The joke is that essentially the entire AI space is just trying to relearn what Noam already figured out 10 years ago. This guy is the guy, and I'm very, 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 very excited for him at OpenAI, because OpenAI has definitely had a little bit of an execution issue. And like Anthropic does seem to be taking it away. Like a lot of the talent's going there. Fable was obviously an amazing pre-train. We see a huge capability leap, and OpenAI doesn't seem to be able to respond to this. And if there's anyone, this is like literally the #1 most important person. Noam Shazir is the guy. And so to me, I'm like surprised this isn't bearish for Google, or rather, I think people need to now appreciate what Google is going to do. Google's plan might as well just be, we're going to buy TPUs, we're going to put it in data centers, and we're going to sell it to OpenAI and Anthropic, because you're the guy left. And when I mean like the guy, like he is the guy. And so I'm really excited I'm kind of excited for OpenAI. I'm not going to lie. Like there's never been a better setup, I think, for them. And I can't express how important this is. So yeah, it's kind of like the most important thing right now, to me at least.
Doug, last 2 questions for you. Thank you for being on the show. Chat absolutely loves you. I mean, they are just so excited to have someone with this much knowledge about semiconductors come onto the show and grace us with your presence. So deeply, deeply appreciate the time. Micron memory. Do you think the story continues over the next 5 years?
So look, man, as long as the AI story continues, memory will be a part of it. Whether if it's obviously DRAM, obviously HBM, even maybe hybrid bonding, or what is it, HBF or something. Like I'm not very bullish, that, to be clear. But what I'm saying is that at the end of the day, the core problem, like the GPU is. I'm gonna do some strained car analogies. The GPU is the engine, okay? How much oil can go in and out, and like how fast you could run this thing is completely dictated by memory. It's not by how, like, you can't really build a bigger engine to make it go faster. It's literally the bigger pipes that matter. And these pipes are going to be the shortage, and as long as there's a giant AI build. And what we're seeing is there's still a giant AI build. There's still a lot of demand. Things are definitely excited, and in the history of memory, it's never. The multiples never traded like this. It's never been this excited. These companies have never made this much money. But I would argue that they've never been this important. And if you look at their execution and how valuable they are, this is like a fundamental bottleneck. It's called the von Neumann bottleneck, where essentially you're constantly kind of constrained by how much memory can go into the compute. And so as long as that continues, I think Micron is going to be Micron and SK and Samsung are going to be some of the primary beneficiaries.
Okay, last question. Broadcom took a little bit of a tumble after their earnings, but everything I saw in the earnings were amazing. Do you think this one is kind of second up behind NVIDIA when it comes to ASICs?
Yeah, because hey, remember they make the TPU. So I think part of the Broadcom story is a little complicated. So the earnings were great. No one's going to lie about. No one's going to say otherwise. I think the thing that people wanted to see was a guide up. Mostly because we all know Anthropic is buying a crap ton of TPUs. And last quarter they said, hey, they kind of said, hey, Anthropic is our new customer and we expect it to buy a lot more. And from that quarter before to now, something has changed. It's cloud code. Like the demand for agentic AI has just gone perpendicular. It's like, I think I saw that on X or something. And so if the largest supplier of the largest compute thing that Anthropic is trying to buy didn't do a guide up, what does that imply? It implies share loss. And I think there is a story at this point in time that does kind of hint to that. And the company that it could go to is MediaTek. And so MediaTek has been long time rumored to be a number 2, kind of a second supplier. In the same way that, TPU is kind of trying to compete against the NVIDIA monopoly, right? MediaTek's trying to trying to compete against the Broadcom monopoly. We're very, very bullish and supportive of Broadcom. They're the best SerDes in the world, bar none. But if Google wants to save costs, it's in their interest to have another vendor. And so I think that that's what the story is there. There's clearly this story where a huge amount of demand showed up from Anthropic, and their largest logical compute provider didn't guide up. What does that imply? And so that's what the story and the fear is. And there's even thought process of other potential vendors coming into the space. Google controls. There's this whole narrative called customer-owned tooling. So Google controls many of the core IP around its own TPU. And so what they can do is they can kind of dictate, hey, we own this car, and maybe we didn't design the car, we had a design partner, but if we go hire another really good mechanic and he says, I'm gonna pay you, I'm gonna charge you half as much. Maybe it might not be as good as the guy who designed it, but if you could get half as much and it's 90% of the way there, maybe that's a way to go forward. Or, for example, maybe you have two cars. And that's kind of what we think is happening, is that you're able to have multiple generations to kind of de-risk as well as lower your cost. And that's the big deal. So that's what we see from the Broadcom's earnings. And I think that that's like the untold story of the results that kind of change the narrative around it.
It's amazing stuff, Doug. Really, really appreciate it. I am linking Semianalysis Substack right here. You guys can follow them. I'm sure a lot of people already subscribe, but you can check it out. Doug, final question for you. Just what has it been like? I mean, I know you guys, it's rumored 100 million in revenue. You guys are really scaling, growing. You guys are the hottest newsletter. Jensen's bringing Dylan on stage at GTC, holding the belt. I mean, it's going to be a fun time for you running this business, I would imagine.
It has been fun. It has also been pretty hard. It is my dream, honestly. I've wanted to do something like this for a long time. I'm really proud of my team. I'm really proud of the people I work with. It's a crazy opportunity at a crazy time in the world and my industry. And we have been rising up to the challenge. I'm pretty fired up. I love to win. And it's been awesome growing and scaling Semianalysis to what it is and what it will be. Our joke, me and Dylan, is that we're going to be the last research firm. And I'm gonna see it through. So that's kind of what we're what it's been like. It's been crazy. I cannot express to you. I'm sure the labs have it crazier than us, but scaling a business from I think when I joined I was like 7 or something to 85 to a line of sight to 100 plus. It's been a crazy journey, but it's also been a crazy journey because so many people who have been along the way have been we have these rock stars within Semianalysis that people don't appreciate. So we're trying to get them on more podcasts and stuff, but also just have them do work. And this also, by the way, is a pitch. If you want to be at the cutting and bleeding edge in AI and semiconductors, we are always looking for people who are really passionate about what they do and want to do the world's best work. Because I think if you want to do your life's best work in this space, Semianalysis is definitely a place for you. And we have a lot of people who are doing just that. And if you want to, I think there maybe not on the main site, there is a recruiting page. So we have job roles open. We're always hiring the best. So
I love it. There it is. Explore career opportunities. I'll link this right here. Thank you again, Doug, for joining. People really, really appreciate it, especially because most of my audience are retail investors. So deeply appreciate the alpha here and hope we have you on soon.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Take care.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it. All right. That was pretty cool. I thought that was a fun interview. Not always you get to speak to someone who's been researching semis for the past 20 years. And so hopefully we can keep getting more and more guests onto the show and bringing some more value in terms of how they're thinking about the world. I think the biggest takeaway I got from that is, yes, we're compute constrained. Yes, the AI build out is not slowing down, but some very nuanced explanations of the neoclouds, nuanced explanations of why memory matters. He did a great job explaining why Broadcom fell, but ultimately why the diversification of Google into different TPU vendors is not necessarily the most bearish thing for Broadcom. And then finally, he answered the question that all of us thought about when it comes to NVIDIA. Why is it not moving? Well, it's big. And like Apple, they've got to buy back stock at this point to get the street to be more excited, which might just end up being part of the reason why it's not necessarily having the biggest move. Overall, market recovering a little bit from a lot of levels. That Amazon news giving it a pump on selling more chips. AMD back to 535. SAS is still down. SpaceX still wrecked for the majority of the day right here, 178. Intel's pushing new highs. S&P still up 1%. ServiceNow just flipped a little green. So realistically, I would say it's pretty much SaaS still red, Semi still up. Nebius once again gets back into the 290s, was at 279. Micron basically breaking through all-time highs again. And most of your semis still rocking and rolling. Marvell hit 326. Now 324 as that continues to go green. All right, folks, that is it. I'll be back on the close. I think we will have Chris on today for Macro Thursday. We'll try to see what else is going on. We don't have any other earnings, so nothing crazy to look at. We will try to get through some of these other headlines. The big thing, I forgot to mention this, I'm happy Doug brought it up, is OpenAI. They hired the Gemini co-lead, Noam Shazir. So that was a really big piece of news yesterday. And I don't know if that's necessarily bearish Google, because Google just has so many people, but it's really bullish OpenAI. So definitely a plus for OpenAI. We will not have the market open tomorrow because there is no market that is open. We will have a basis points episode out tomorrow for you guys, but no market open or close. But we'll be back on Monday. Word of the day. What is this? Corey Bantic. Never heard this word before. Wildly enthusiastic, frenzied, or ecstatic. The reaction to the IPO became almost Corey Bantic, with investors piling in at any price. 2 words of the day and the week are actually task and force. I agree. The Canadian market. Dude, Tanner should do a market open tomorrow and open up Canada's market. I would love to see a Canada market open. That would be fun. Okay, how do you say Corey Bantic? There's no way I'm saying this thing wrong. No freaking way.
Corey Bantic.
There we go. There we go. Corey Bantic. That is your word of the day. Looks like it's describing SpaceX, wildly enthusiastic, frenzied, or ecstatic. But that is what we got for today. Yeah, next big earnings is Micron, June 24th. Again, what he said, Doug, I think really does make sense. If AI is going to keep having to build out, memory is going to be a big part of that story. And so maybe that earnings is what is taking to change the sort of multiple on the stock into the 20s. Right now it's trading into the low teens on the multiple. And if that happens, it's probably going higher. Easy Goldenberg, thank you for the super chat. It is not my birthday. If it is your birthday, then happy birthday. Appreciate the super chat right here. And you're giving a super chat because it's your birthday. Deeply, deeply appreciate it. It's not my birthday today, but thank you for that. And hopefully, if it is your birthday, then you're having a good birthday, as we're having a relatively green day outside of the semis and Accenture. Outside of that, everything else still holding on pretty nicely. Okay, I think that is it, folks. We'll be back on the close. Yes, we can. Oh, for Steve. Okay, I was like, that makes more sense. Thank you. Okay. Steve is about to be live, so I'll find a way to get Steve this $100. I'll make sure I buy the drinks tonight wherever we go out to eat. So, but yeah, that makes way more sense. So Steve's going to be live in what, 6 minutes? Okay, what do we spam Steve with here on his birthday? Dude, look at it. Look at this guy on Gemini. His thumbnails are just crazy. His thumbnails are absolutely crazy here. I just want to be a fly on the wall and see what prompts Steve is putting into Gemini to get these thumbnails. Kanga, thank you for the super chat as well. Deeply appreciate it. Thanks for being you, Amit. Thanks for being here. Thank you for the super chat. I think we have to do... We could use Corey Bantic. It's a Corey Bantic birthday. Yeah, happy birthday is just probably easier. There you go. That's a better spam. All right, we can do happy birthday. He'll be live in 5 minutes. Again, we'll be recording later tonight. And I'll see him later today as well. So, all right, there you go. There's a stream. Thank you, everybody, for being here again. We'll try to get some more dope guests on the show. I really, really, really want to diversify the types of guests we have. Just want to get more perspectives. And I think there's a lot of people that'd be willing to come on, especially since so many people are here every day. Like you want to reach new audiences. So definitely going to try to get as many different perspectives and voices. And Doug was awesome. So hopefully we get him on again in the future. and we can bring a ton of more voices there. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. There's Steve's stream. We'll see you guys there. And I'll be back on the market close. Nothing too crazy going into the close. I don't think Trump is speaking later today. If he does, we'll talk about it. But if not, then we'll just get through all the other headlines that we got going on. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you guys in a few hours. Bye, everyone.